folks, we're going to get started. I will call the meeting to order. The North Hunterdon-Voorhees Regional High School District Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, August 18th, 2026 is now called to order. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10-4-6, adequate notice giving the time, date, location, and to the extent known, the agenda of this meeting was sent to the Hunterdon County Democrat, Star-Ledger, and Courier News on January 7th, 2026, and published on January 12th, 2026. In addition, notice of this meeting has been posted at the North Hunterdon High School and Voorhees High School, provided to the municipal clerks of Bethlehem Township, Califon Borough, Town of Clinton, Clinton Township, Franklin Township, Glen Gardner Borough, Hampton Borough, Highbridge Borough, Lebanon Township, Tewksbury Township, and Union Township, as well as other interested parties, and posted on the legal notices section of the district website. I just want to read our mission statement. The North Hunterdon-Voorhees Regional High School District empowers all students through innovative and personalized learning to achieve their full potential, embrace lifelong learning, and contribute responsibly to a changing world. Fire exits are located in the direction indicated. If alerted to fire, please move in a calm and orderly fashion to the nearest smoke-free exit. Restrooms are located through the doors behind this desk and to the right as indicated. At this time, please silence all cell phones. Roll call.
Mr. Hicks? Here. Mr. Chapman?
Here.
Mr. Hammond?
Here.
Ms. Hicks?
Here.
Mr. Lordy?
Here.
Mr. Matthews?
Here.
Ms. Caput is absent. Mr. Morgan?
Here.
Ms. Reyes?
Here.
Mr. Stanton?
Here.
Ms. Stein?
Here.
And Mr. McIsaac.
Here. All right. Join us for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, as tonight is our working session, we'll obviously be discussing a number of items that we will be moving next week. The first being the minutes from July 21st, the working session, and the August 4th board meeting. Any questions or clarifications on those items? Okay, hearing none. Tonight we do have a presentation by Rich Brown, Director of Curriculum, on the 2024-25 School Performance Report. So as Mr. Brown sets up, I think you have either a link, and I think you had shared it as well.
So if anyone wants to follow along on their computer, I sent the link just earlier, about half an hour ago.
So you should have that in your email.
Sometimes it's just easier to see things.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. I hope that you're all having a great summer. Sorry, since I can't see you around here. First off, this is not a misprint. I know it says 2024, 2025. That is what we are discussing today, even though we're about to start the 2026, 2027 school year. Typically, the state of New Jersey releases the school performance reports around January for the year before. This year, because they redesigned our website, we did not get these until the end of May. So, we're now giving you some information about the school performance report for the 24-25 school year. I'll tell you first off that the purpose of them publishing these school performance reports is just to have conversations. I'll show you the website so that you can access the school performance report for every public school in the state of New Jersey. There's an individual one for each school, and then there's also one for each district as a whole. But the purpose, again, is just to start those conversations and to look at the districts and the schools in a different perspective. So as far as accessing these school performance reports, you can go directly to the state website, which is nj.gov/education/SPR for school performance reports. And we, as required, have them linked on our website too. I just had to change this slide this afternoon when I remembered that we updated our website. So on our district website under Parents and Community, you will see an academics part, and we go to academics, then you will see school performance reports.
So that will take you directly to the website I just showed you, the state website, and then you can search for the school or the district from there. So the school performance reports include a lot of information, overviews. There are some narrative portions that we add in, demographic information, student growth, college and career readiness, climate, environment, staff information. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of narrative information as well. So it does give you a lot of information about the schools and districts. They did make some changes for the 2024-2025 reports. There is an updated format, which is what I mentioned about the new website. So it has some interactive graphs and tables. It does have additional chronic absenteeism data showing 4-year trends, some additional syllabi literacy data showing the 5-year trends, and some expanded ELA and math performance information, as well as expanded AP and dual enrollment data over 5 years. Now, as I always do, as I get into these presentations, the numbers are going to look really weird. Like, for example, it's going to say in the 24-25 school year, we had 1,900 students. That is nowhere near the amount of students that we have. It does not include any of the Hunterdon County Vocational School District students. They have their own school performance report. So when you see the ratios with teachers and administrators and media specialists, just keep in mind that about 25% of our population is not included in this. We still educate all of them. You know, they're still receiving all the services and everything, but they're not technically our students. So speaking of enrollment, you can see without the Hunterdon County Vocational School District students, our enrollment has gone down about 265 students over the past 5 years. We've been able to maintain the enrollment, keeping it pretty steady with the Hunterdon County Vocational School District students. This snapshot from 24-25 and each of those 5 years shows breakdowns in different subgroups as well, such as our multilingual learners and students with disabilities and things like that. So, it does give us not just the total number of students, but looking at the percentage of students in different categories as well. So as far as, and this is just providing a snapshot of some of the items in that school performance report. If we were to present everything in the school performance report, we could be here for the rest of the night. So we're just going to highlight some of the things that are included in there, including statewide assessments. So the numbers for the statewide assessments will include NGSLA information, DLM, which is the dynamic learning maps for some of our students with disabilities. It will include access for ELLs for students who are learning English, and also the NJGPA. So kind of all of that information is combined into the assessment information for ELA and math. So on the left-hand side, we have the ELA information. On the right-hand side, we have the math information. In isolation, it doesn't really tell you much. At the bottom, it shows how that compares to the statewide proficiency. So typically for ELA statewide, and again, this is all NJSLA results, all NJGPA results, all access for ELLs results, all DLM results, around the state, it's around 50% for ELA over the years, and it's around 40% for math. So we're significantly above that. We had a great year in 23-24. Some years there's just a class that really is outstanding. And I remember having those conversations when we were looking at that class. And now we've typically been, in that 65% range for ELA across all assessments, and around 50% with math. And again, you see a comparison to the state. Yes?
Again, these numbers don't include the academy students.
Correct.
Would the VOTEC numbers show math and English assessment for the academy members?
If they are full-time Hunterdon County Vocational School District students, yes. If they're shared time, they would belong to us.
The academy students are full-time, correct?
Yeah, the academy students are full-time and the animal science are full-time, yes.
Okay.
So even though we teach them all of their math classes, we don't teach all of the ELA classes, most of them. But yes, it would show up for them.
Okay.
Why is that?
They're technically their students. We have a relationship with them, with the contracts and everything, and we take on the services, but they're technically in the state system, they're their students.
Have you done the calculation of those?
We have.
I'm looking at it right now, that the academies, the ELA is 95%, proficiency in math is 90%.
Yes. It bumps it up 3 to 5%. Yeah.
Rich, that was including, just if I heard you correctly,
That's just
how
the
the
academies.
vocational students.
Just
the vocational.
Yes.
Got it.
But
Yeah.
that's vocational, it doesn't break it down by academy, right? So that's also students.
Just Hunterdon County academies, which are just,
So-
those are
A
just
subset of the
regular biomedical.
It's a subset of vocational.
Yeah.
So they do have, technically they have 2 schools. The
Okay.
academy is 1 school, and then we have the Polytech school as well. So if you look at the district, it would include all of those students,
Okay.
but the numbers would be pretty similar.
Got it.
Yeah.
And as these programs expand, these students will be included in the same school, I think, as the animal science.
The Polytech school, yes. The school performance report also includes information on graduation rates. Students can demonstrate proficiency in a variety of ways. You know, we've talked about the NJGPA, there's cut scores for other assessments like SAT or ACT. There's a portfolio appeal that they can do. So in order to be eligible for graduation, all students need to demonstrate proficiency in ELA and math, in addition to meeting all of the other requirements that the state of New Jersey sets forth for us, and also our requirements. So there is a difference between the federal graduation rate and the state graduation rate. You can see the distinction. You're not going to see much of a difference in in the federal and the state, but both versions are there. So,
Rich, on that,
Yes.
with the alternative pathways being available, once we've administered or pursued the alternative pathways, how do we stand in terms of graduation eligibility? In other words, do all students ultimately meet one of the alternative pathways?
I've never, since I've been in this role, had a student who didn't meet eligibility in one of those areas. Yes.
So the numbers don't always match up. You see, the GPA results are 50% for math, but yet 95% of our students are graduating in 4 years. Sorry.
Right.
Well, and some of those alternative pathways close this gap.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if you're looking at the graduation rates and we see, well, how come it's not 100%? Because we occasionally do have students who drop out, unfortunately, or who decide to pursue other, go into other areas, go into the workforce, or the case may be. So, we do have our graduation rates over the past 5 years. They do a 4-year cohort and also a 5-year cohort. Because some students might be here 5 years, and we see the comparisons to the state. So the state's typically around 91% in 4 years. We're consistently 95, 96, was up to 97% in 2022. And the numbers that we're talking about, we could be talking about 1 or 2 students difference, and sometimes it's just miscoding them by mistake. So we do our best to code them all correctly. But you can see the state rates versus our graduation rates.
Can I pull on the thread a little bit? The difference between the proficiency rates we just saw, 50-ish%, and the 95, 98% graduation, that is not due to alternative pathways. That's because the first data set, the proficiency, includes kids
It includes
from 9 to 12.
NJS, it's not just that test. It includes NJS,
Right.
it includes access for ELLs, it includes ELM. It's every English assessment, every math assessment.
Okay.
So typically our NJGPA, which is the graduation proficiency assessment, has for math around 75% proficient.
Okay, so something like a quarter of students go some use of other means
Yes.
than passing.
For math, yes.
Right.
And ELA is typically around 90% proficient.
Okay.
And then the other students will use PSAT, SAT, AccuPlacer, or the portfolio, or something like that.
And sometimes those alternative assessments are done or complete before you can take the GPA, right?
Yeah, so we actually have, we actually just received the NJGPA results yesterday. And we knew how many students were already proficient from alternate assessments already. But
You received the NJ GPA results yesterday for the students you gave a diploma to?
no,
Okay.
they're rising seniors.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
But in other words, the GPA is given what time of the year?
March.
March of their junior year, right?
Yeah.
But they take the PSAT, which is an alternate path assessment, in the fall of their junior year.
And even their sophomore year.
And sometimes their sophomore year, it's the same test, yeah. So they can meet the requirement of that alternate assessment, meaning they reach a cut score in the PSAT in their sophomore or junior year, and then by the time they take the GPA, it's like, well, I already met.
You mean on that map, right.
But they
They
need
better
to
give their
sit,
best effort.
but they need to
But they
sit
need to
for the
sit.
NJGPA for it to count, yes.
So they all have to sit for it, are you saying some people who may have already met and other ways just say, oh,
They might not take it
I'm
as
not having
seriously
a bad
as-
day, and I just put C in for every answer.
If it was
And
that high stakes, you know, if they did it, that they've already met the graduation requirements, some students are savvy enough to know that.
I'm sorry, did you, that was about the NJGPA question? Isn't there also an option to opt out of that test for students though?
The
Or
NJGPA.
that's, or maybe that's NJSLA?
yeah, I think the
Okay.
SLA.
Too many acronyms, I'm sorry.
Without a doubt, believe me, no.
So, going back to the proficiency results, it is good to compare it to the statewide, but perhaps you've at least noodled around a little bit about what some other school, I mean, is there, so we're at, let's just take the math, we're at 50%. The state is at 40% or 35% or something. Are there schools out there that are getting 90s?
On this part, where it includes all assessments, I
Yeah.
doubt it. Yes.
Okay,
So
but this is not something you've really dug into. Like,
what we do
what is
is
the
we-
range?
I'll be completely honest with you. These numbers here don't mean as much as the results from the individual assessments. That's what we dig into. So the NJSLA results, we dig into those specifically. For the NJGPA results, we dig into those as well. But because this isn't, they're trying to combine assessments that are not the same.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Should I come to the conclusion that it's not a meaningful set of data?
This one, yeah, I mean, I think the information that we present for the actual assessments, when we give those presentations, that, to me, that's more meaningful than this. Because think about a K-12 district. This same slide that they have here combines 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, and 11th grade.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, if we're kind of assuming it's not great data, is it used for anything? Government or statewide? Like, are they judging us, or are they?
So there is information on QSAC, but it's not determined in the same way. So when they give us our, we don't determine our scores for QSAC, they determine it for us. And let's just say that the math people would not be happy with how they do it, because they take your complete score, like your overall percentage who are proficient, they average that with all of your subgroups. So they average it with the male population, the female population, the ML population, the students with disabilities population. I'm not going to say you can't, you shouldn't average numbers that are that different. So for example, if 25% of ML students pass and 90% of your total population passes, your score is the average of those two, even though one might have 20 students and one has 400. Yeah. I wish I was making that up.
And yet, yes, so this data might not be a fair representation, but it's being reported on our district, so that's why we thought it was important, at least to bring it to your attention, and then have some explanation of it this way in case you know.
Because these are public documents that everybody can access, and we want to be able to talk about, what it shows us, what it tells us.
So Rich, I have a question.
Sure.
So going back on top anyway, the statewide proficiency percentages seem to, they're going up a point or two every year here, right? There seems to be, if I'm looking, the proficiency rate in the middle, that's us, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So it looks like if I'm looking, there's a much more variance in our proficiency rates than what is comparable to the state. I guess, so my question is, A, why is that? Where we're seeing a point or two going up every year from the state, but seeing significant swings in either way. Like if you look at ELA 23-24, it's 74.4% and dropping down to 60. That's a pretty steep variance.
Sure.
So why is it that our proficiency rate, at least on a percentage basis, do you think is not nearing what is happening on the state level?
It's a numbers thing, because those numbers for the state, that's third grade, that's fourth grade, that's fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, ninth grade, 11th grade, all combined into one. With us, we're just looking at 9 and 11, so it's a much smaller population. So when we have such a smaller population, there's going to be variability year to year. But you're talking about millions across the state. So when you're talking about that many students and that many grades, it's going to be more consistent. It's a numbers thing.
Okay, so I guess if I'm looking at, okay, so this might be applicable, I'm not sure. So I'm looking at this, looks like 21, 22, that kind of, even to 23, it seems to me that would kind of be like a post-COVID bounce up, right? Like recovery. But then you see the 24, 25, then there's a significant drop off. Is there anything that would say, hey, okay, the uptick makes sense post-COVID recovery, but that percentage downtick, is that a red flag? Is that saying, okay, we're way past COVID now, we shouldn't be having variants like that, or?
Sometimes there's an especially strong group, and that's really what
Is it
yeah.
just that simple?
I think it is that simple.
Didn't you report that last year?
We did.
This year, I think that when they reported last year, they said, this is a very unique class.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And if you look at the variance though, statewide you're 49, 51, 52, 53, then we're 56, 60, even though it's a higher gap, it's not that, the ratio is still kind of aligned, of the amount that it's jumping, so it's not too far off to what you're saying, of that,
And
it
plus-
doesn't seem too skewed in my opinion.
And again, 25% of our students are included in this.
Just flat.
Yep.
Could that variation for statewide proficiency also be due to pouring funds and resources into school districts that are lacking and that increasing their proficiencies?
It could be.
So could it account for some of that growth as well?
Yeah, I mean, and, I hate to say this, but next year, basically we're starting all over again with the 25, 26 assessments. They're telling us not to compare the 25, 26 assessments to previous ones. It's going to be on a whole different scoring system with different cut scores, and it's now an adaptive test rather than the fixed form test that they were. So really, the reporting of the 24, 25 is going to be the end. When we go forward, we're going to be starting over with a new baseline.
So we're not going to have anything to compare it to that would be a fair comparable.
They say it's not a great comparison.
Wouldn't the 25, 26 testing have already occurred?
It did occur, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And when are they coming out with that version of this? Because if this was late, when is?
They typically release it around January of the following year. But like I said, for this one, it wasn't until late May.
So they're gonna still keep the same cadence?
I think with the new website, they're hoping to get back to around January.
Okay.
I think we looked at graduation rates. Like I said, the federal graduation rates are very similar to the state graduation rates, but those are included here as well. So you know that a big topic of conversation, especially last year, was chronic absenteeism and attendance. So this does show, the top part is our chronic absenteeism rate district-wide, and you can see that, and to define chronic absenteeism, which I think you all know at this point, it's students who are absent 10% or more of the days that they should be in school. So if they were here, if they were in our district all 180 days, if they had 18 or more absences, they are considered chronically absent. So in 22-23, 20% of our students were chronically absent. So we identified that as an area that we needed to address. And you can see it has gone down since then. And I believe for 25, 26, it went down even more than that as well. And you can see how that compares to the state. So we were actually above the state average in 22, 23, and 23, 24. And then we, dropped down below the state average in 24, 25.
And the number for this year is something like the 5.
I think it was 5, 4.9 and 5.9.
So, and then on the school performance report, they give us a breakdown by grade as well. So you can see the 9th grade students are the ones with the lowest percentage of who are chronically absent. But the seniors, as you would expect, have the highest rates of chronic absenteeism. So that helps us know what to pinpoint and do better. So there is some information on college and career readiness here, and it does show both our district information and how that compares to the state. So things like seal of biliteracy and CTE, dual enrollment courses, AP courses. One of the things to highlight is that 56% of our students are juniors and seniors who are enrolled in at least one AP course, which we're really proud of. But you can see the percentage of students who take the SAT or ACT and how that compares to the state as well. Yes?
Question.
Sure.
What is the difference in what it's measuring between an SAT and an ACT? Like, why would one choose to take one over the other or both?
Some individual colleges tend to prefer one over the other, or some students just do better. They perform better on one assessment. But in the Northeast especially, most students take the SAT, and I think, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, I think more southern schools do the ACT or...
And the West.
And the West, yeah. So it's kind of a regional thing, the expectation.
Most colleges take both now, interchangeably.
And is there a difference between what they're assessing per se, or like how they're assessing?
The difference is less than what it used to be. The tests are much more comparable now. But there are assessments that students can take to determine if they're going to do better on one or the other. There are pre-test kind of things that you can take, and there are some correlations that students are going to do better on an SAT versus an ACT.
Okay.
And the different vendors, so different ways they form questions, and sometimes students that will take both say, well, did I score any 90th percentile of the ACT scores, or 91 in SAT? And they use the best score.
And then there's a breakdown of visual and performing arts. So 57% of our students in that year in grades 9 through 12 were enrolled in at least one arts course. The state average is 51%. And there's a breakdown in music. We do not have dance or drama course. Well, we actually have a drama course, but it hasn't grown. And we also, and a number for visual arts as well, and how that compares across the state.
Are those two, dance and drama, aren't those academy things now too or something, I think?
They are, yeah. All schools in New Jersey, all districts in New Jersey are required to have a dance curriculum and a drama curriculum, even if you don't offer the courses.
Okay, so we have the curriculums, we don't have the classes, but our Polytech offers those courses?
Yes. So dance do they have dance, or that's in Somerset?
It's a Performing Arts Academy.
That is part of that.
I believe this is the first.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
South.
I believe this is the first year it's running down there.
This will be the first year, yes. Up until then, students were going to Somerset.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Prior to that, we would have to bus our students to Somerset County Polytech if they wanted to go to the dance program, because we didn't have one in county. And that is one of the vocational rules. If your county school district doesn't run a program that's comparable to somebody in a neighboring county, then they're eligible to go to a neighboring county.
Right, and then we have to pay tuition for the neighboring county VOTEC to send our student there.
Correct.
And now bringing them, and now Polytech, our Polytech offer it, we won't have to pay that out of district tuition, or we still do, but it comes back better maybe, because
We get a piece of it back.
versus Somerset we don't.
For the ones that are here, for this case, in the Performing Arts Academy, when they go to South Hunterdon, we would pay the full in-county tuition.
Okay.
And I don't know how it compares to out-of-county for other programs, but I would cheap.
Right.
And then there's always, at the end, the student safety in the district, so it shows the number of incidents throughout the district in various categories, and the number of incidents across the state for different categories. As you know, so the total unique incidents were 65 in our district. When you look at those different areas, 29, almost 30,000 across the state. And again, when you look at the incidents per 100, keep in mind two things. One is that we do a pretty darn good job of identifying incidents when they occur. And secondly, when we're recording incidents, we're not identifying a student. So if one of the students in the vocational school district does that, it's still showing up as one of our numbers, but it's not counting as the per 100. Does that make sense?
So that would be divided by 2,400, not 1,900.
Correct. Right. And then the narrative information that's in the school performance report is on the left there. But obviously you can access all of this in the school performance report itself. Yes?
Are the number of incidents per state, the per 100 students, is that K through 12 as well?
Yes. Yes. And then, like I mentioned, there are some ratios, students to teachers, students to administrators, et cetera, as well as the narrative about student supports. And, you know, they suggest mentioning at the end how you can get involved. You know, we want parents to be involved and we want stakeholders to be involved. So reach out to the school. There are some suggestions that I have here at the end. There are some resources on the state website as well. But some of the ways, these are not all of the ways, but some of the ways people can engage with the schools. There's parent advisory committees at each building, or booster clubs, the Ed Foundation, Music Association, Theater Association, the PTSA or PTSO. Obviously, we always do school climate surveys. That really helps to inform what we do. But those are just a few examples, but there are certainly ways to get involved to participate in the schools. Are there any questions that you still have about this? Yes.
So back to what Brian was saying, it's great to compare the states. Is there an easy way that does not cost a tremendous amount of work to, say, compare to the county, compare to other high school districts only?
So the one thing that I'll mention that I did not put on here is that the school performance report for the school, not the district, but for the school, it does include a summative score as well. So North and Voorhees were the highest, ones with the highest summative scores in the county, by quite a bit actually. So we are doing well. And you know, I always look at summative scores across the state as well, and we are right on par with the top schools in the state. And you know, is it everything? I mean, I wouldn't, you know, rely solely on that, but it's part of the picture.
That score is, the state has some rubric based on all the data you just showed to come up with a final score.
They do.
And you didn't show it because you don't have a lot of faith in it. You don't want it to be all anchored to it, but
it includes graduation rate. It includes assessment information. It includes chronic absenteeism. I'm forgetting some of the other ones. There's like 5 different scores.
Historically, the biggest thing with it is that they've changed the rules over the years, just like they changed state test scores, right? And so it's not always a good comparison year to year, but it is a good metric when you're looking at who against other similar schools.
So I do have at the end of the presentation some additional information, some links to state websites and information where you can contact them for more information or contact me for more information. But just want to give you a little bit of information about the school performance report. Any final questions?
I have one question that kind of goes all the way back to the demographic information at the beginning. With the increase of economically disadvantaged students, is that truly, are we seeing a demographic change, or is that by virtue of the academy students increasing and being removed, and thereby magnifying that number among remaining students? Or a little bit of both?
I think that we've had those programs for more than 5 years. trying to remember when they
Yeah,
started.
the academies have been around for longer than 5 years,
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
I
so
think
that
the
wouldn't be
numbers are based on
impact.
Last time I looked, actually, the number of economically disadvantaged students that come to us through the academy programs is a higher percentage than our population of economically disadvantaged. So if I were to gander a guess, it would be our population due to the changes in this area of students.
Any other questions?
So, Rich,
Yes.
the summative score is what exactly?
So there are five, I believe there's 5 different components to the summative score. I know it includes chronic absence.
No, not what goes into it,
Oh,
like
okay.
what, is it?
It's on a 1 to 100 scale.
But it's 9 to 12?
Well, so there are.
I just don't know what
different-
the definition of that is. That's-
Yeah, so there are different criteria for how the score is developed for a high school versus a middle school, yes. So it is different, because obviously they don't have the graduation rates or things like that. So yes, it is, the middle school summative score is calculated differently than the high school summative score.
Okay, so I guess what I struggle to understand here is, if this isn't really a good comparison, this data from the state, right? And neither is the summative,
Oh, I'm not saying it's not, I mean, it all is part of the picture.
I just don't know what you're supposed to do with not great comparisons on either data point.
You use it as part of your analysis, and you compare it with other things as well. And you also look at the students, and the teachers, and the climate surveys, and all of it factors into how you're evaluating the district and the individual schools. So it's all part of the picture. It's hard to pick one defining data point as the one, but instead using all of the data points as something that you can get a pretty good idea of how we're doing.
So it's more of like a puzzle piece.
It is.
But this is how the state ranks us and
Right.
ranks us, right? And so that's why it's important that we collect data with you. If you wanted my opinion, I'd ask, 900 some graduates every year, but 4 years from now, how are they doing? How was college? How was the career you went into? Were you successful in everything you want to do? Do you feel like high school prepared you? That would be better data. We don't have the ability to do that right now. So we look at the data that we get while we're in high school.
There you go. All right, well, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to the chief school administrator. Dr. Burgess.
All right. I really don't have much for this month because we don't have any monthly school reports because we didn't have school during the last month before this meeting. And we don't have any reports on harassment, intimidation, and bullying, again, because we didn't have any school to have those. I did want to bring your attention to one point, though. I did link the 26-27 district goals that I know I shared with everybody, I think back in June, and I think I might have shared it once since then. But just if there is any feedback with these, we developed these goals as an administrative team. If anyone has any feedback from the board, I want to be collaborative with that with the full board. Let me know. It really doesn't require any action on this, but I wanted you to be aware that it was in there so you can review it again and make sure the public had access to it so that once we agree that these are our district goals, we can put those up.
I guess like last year, I know it was developing a framework. This year is moving into integrating. And I think you spoke to this before about just the ways that you're looking at integration. In terms of there's curricular documents that will have certain types of assessments in them. I didn't know if there's information coming back from teacher observation, lesson plans, student survey feedback, or whether it's climate and culture, as to how they're sort of experiencing different types of assessments also.
So we had our first curriculum meeting today, and Rich shared with us a website that he actually developed to collect that information from the teachers per department. So for every course that we run, we'll be collecting the future ready, whether it be assessment, activity, all different types of material, or all different types of things that are happening in the classroom. That will either be authentic learning examples or AI integration examples. And so we'll be able to collect that information per course, and then the advantage to that is we get all the data, but we also, the website will be available for everybody, so the teachers can look at what other teachers are doing and get ideas, and it's good. I think it has great potential for this coming year. So.
Well, it's just because that also feels like a data point, an additional data point, and very different from some of the other standardized assessments as well, more like the daily student experience in terms of activities and assessments as well.
And a career exploration is something that we still want to focus a little bit more on this year. I think that's really important to make sure we partner with other industry partners as well.
So, I have a quick question, or a few questions on the district goals there. And number 2 in the personnel section, is there any concern of fitting that into teachers' time?
Yeah, there is. That's something that we're going to have to work on as administrators, make sure we provide. And again, when this is a district goal, everybody is contributing to this, but we have to make the space for it to happen. And that's one of the things we're going to work on, is making sure that we give them the time that they need to do these observations.
And there's no contractual concern over...
Well, there would be some contractual concerns. Again, we have to work around those and make sure that we're not impacting. Like we wouldn't tell the teacher that they need to use their prep time in order to go observe another class, right? But what we'll end up doing is saying, we can release you from a duty because we can have someone cover you during that period so you can go release this class. Or, there's lots of things we can do to be flexible. And I think a lot of our teachers will be flexible too. They might say, well, I want to see this time and it's during my prep period, can you give me my prep somewhere else? And we can figure stuff like that out. So, but I think this is something we're going to have to work closely with the association with. It'll be part of the strategic planning advisory committee that I run as well, to make sure that we're doing this in a way that is not adding a burden to teachers' workload, but is also allowing them to get the benefit of what this is intended for.
And I guess maybe just before you leave that item, I know this is targeting non-tenured teachers initially. Okay.
Yep. It's only half. We're only asking half of the tenured staff to participate in the feedback session.
The 100% was the non-tenured. Got it.
Teachers,
Okay.
2 observations.
So
again, it's a much smaller amount. The non-tenured teachers are a smaller group that we have to make accommodations for those 2 observations. Whereas if half of our veteran teachers made the time to do this, that'd be great.
And second, on the fiscal management operations one, I know that's kind of geared towards the transportation. Is there any initial feedback on the waiver thing that we can share?
We have over 100 students that have waived. And I would say
Wow.
about 80% are seniors thus far. So we still have a few days left to garner more.
Excellent.
Yeah. So I would say so far successful, and hopefully we'll continue to even become more successful.
Great. And there's a deadline?
There is a deadline. The day before school starts is our deadline, and I'm going to be meeting with Hunterdon County ESC to talk about next week to see how we can see what the impact is on the transportation costs.
It may be me, but I'm not sure if the deadline was clear in the communication that went out. And again, maybe my lack of reading knowledge.
I don't think we did put a hard deadline because we didn't want this to be like, if you don't do it by this date, especially for the first year, because if somebody, we're not going to be able to reroute buses before day 1 of school based on this data. Right? In future years, we may want to put dates so that we have this data and make sure we don't even run the buses unless we need them. But for this year, it was collecting the data, then we could reroute in September, October timeframe and say, well, maybe we can eliminate 1 run here. Or it might be, January that we do that, if people continue to waive their rights.
So it's trending in a good direction.
Yes.
Excellent.
And I guess to that point, and given sort of the flexibility of an evolving time frame, would there be any additional push, I guess, communication or a reminder if the window truly isn't closed?
I think our plan is to do another communication when we get, let school open up.
Okay.
Send it out soon after the school year is settled in, so that parents have that second opportunity to sign up for it. And as long as we're in the beginning of that school year, again, we're trying to collect data on how many people would typically participate. Again, we'll still have the opportunity to reroute maybe a bus or 2 run, and that would allow us to meet this goal.
Then expanding on that, I know the policy for the additional parking spaces to be offered to juniors is generally second half of the year. Is there a benefit or possibly a benefit of opening up earlier to juniors who may already have their licenses and would opt out?
So we opened it up to everybody. So juniors have the option
But I
to.
mean, but offering the parking permit earlier in the year,
Yeah.
being that way they can drive all year, so they can park. Something to do.
It's something to think about. You know, again, I want to make sure our seniors get the advantage of having a parking spot. I wouldn't want to run out of parking spots before all of our seniors got them, because that's their last year taking.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because I think I have a child close to this situation, they have to have their license
Oh, they have to have
to
their
be
license.
able to do
Yeah.
it. So if you have a very young senior, they might not be getting their license until September, late September.
Or want to put off her driving.
Perhaps, yeah, that's true,
happens.
yeah,
She didn't get around.
right.
Yeah, and we still
Or
have
might not
students.
pass on their birthday.
True.
All sorts of things arise with driving.
I'm hearing several lived experiences in this
A lot of
moment.
scenarios, we still have seniors too that they might get their license, but they can't afford a vehicle, right? And so they're not driving to school because they don't have a car.
Got it.
On that note, I did, one thing.
Same note, okay.
I did want to just say, I was contacted by a zoning officer in Clinton Township. I know there's been talked about the Beaverbrook parking lot, and juniors parking over there and charging for it. And I believe they have asked them to cease and desist on that practice. So we're going to work with them and have sent a communication out about that as well, that we don't want students parking over there. It's not, there's no safe way to get from that parking lot to our campus. And so we're going to, again, work with Clinton Township to try to discourage that behavior.
Which may add to the buses.
Well, it may add students on buses, but it also may have students, once they're eligible now this year, when they get their license, at least in the second half of the year, if there's spots available, everything goes right, you know, have the ability to pay, you know, the prorated parking fee and parking.
Stephen?
I was just curious as of the bullets with the timeframes that are set up with those goals, like, was kind of just like loose, you know what I mean, like goals to achieve by that time. How do you plan to do that, and how then, like for example, on instruction and program, you know, so I think if I recall correctly, the last year's goal was to implement that, or, you know, start implementing the Future Ready framework, right? So then this was to integrate it, so to have a complete district-wide audit of year one, so that's going to be last year's initial thing, and then you can implement something halfway through the year. Like, how would a, like, goal 2 or bullet 2 there, update 100% of course curriculum to include this assessment halfway through the year? How would that affect students?
So again, these timelines are not perfect, right?
Sure.
These are estimates on when we hope these things will be accomplished. Our idea is, you know, start off with analyzing the data from the pilot last year, find out what worked and what didn't, and then roll it out to all the different curriculums so that we can get them included in the curriculums, and then eventually, you know, have them as part of 100% of the courses. And then also look at the career exploration partnerships. And that would be later on in the year after we've already accomplished the authentic learning assessments and lessons.
And what would that, like, what course, like who can do, what is a career exploration partnership like? What would that look like? What was an example?
So again, this came from our strategic plan, and one of the things that that everybody wanted when we did all of our data collection was for our students to be able to connect with local industries.
Yeah.
You know, HVAC is a great example, right? And I know Polytech does this a lot, but you know, I know of HVAC companies that have called me personally and said, hey, do you have any kids that are interested in this? I'd love to have a senior that, you know, if they could get some work release during their senior year, or if they were just interested in a job, you know, maybe leaving early because they have a study hall at the end of the day. Those are the types of things that we want to make sure students are aware of the opportunities, and then partnering with them.
Cool.
It could also be just some job shadowing, you know, and it could be in, you know, another industry where the students aren't actually doing work, but they're seeing what happens in that industry to pique their interest in what they might want to go to college for.
And would those, what time, like, would that be done extracurricular, like after school, like those, obviously, like those types of things, like to, and you would like sign up, it would be in a specific field, so it would just be for certain students at first as you grow the program and stuff like that. Like, right, you'll start small and maybe try to find more businesses in different realms, as so to say, like, right, throughout as time goes on and stuff.
Yeah, it could be outside of school, and I think a lot of the things that we talk about are that, but it could just be a field trip too. I remember at one point,
this was years ago when they were still around Foster Wheeler, we used to take some of our students over to Foster Wheeler to look at their lab, their engineering lab, and it was fascinating to see the equipment they had and what they did with it, to hear how they use that equipment. So it could be field trips, it could be career partnerships, for internships and things of that nature. I think this has a lot of different potentials, and that's why we left it sort of open with career exploration partnerships, right?
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Rich?
So going back to the waiver, so if I heard it right, we've got so far 100 signed waivers across 2 schools?
Yeah.
It seems light to me, if I'm out of the box. And you said most of them are seniors?
I think 80 out of 100, last time we looked, were seniors.
So would it be safe to say that we've got 100 waivers signed, 80% of it are seniors who probably are parking here, right?
Yep.
So are we starting the school year with the same amount of buses, or was that allow us to eliminate one yet?
We were always planning on starting the school year with the same amount of buses.
Yeah, let's say it holds the way it is. Would we then be able to quickly eliminate a bus?
No, we don't want to quickly eliminate a bus. We want to make sure our kids are getting here, in an efficient way. We would probably look at eliminating buses if we're able to do that based on the numbers. Again, it depends on if it's number driven. That would probably be in the late September, early October timeframe. We're going to start looking at those numbers and seeing if we can reroute things. And some of the numbers might not tell the full story either. If we had 100 students in our entire transportation realm, and those students were actually just spread out amongst those routes evenly, we wouldn't be able to eliminate a bus, because having 2 or 3 kids drop off a bus,
sure,
that doesn't help, right? Even having 10 kids drop off a bus might not help if there's not another bus route that you had maybe 5 more kids drop off that was full, because you can't absorb those 10 kids.
Sure.
So there's a lot of factors that go into it, and so this is just one part of it.
Yeah.
But we're hoping, with the data that we can collect, that we'll be able to eliminate some this year and then anticipate what we can do in future years.
Yeah, I know it's obviously it's still early in the year. I don't know why I just thought that that number would have been greater than 100 at this point. I thought there would have been more. Said differently, I thought there would have been more interest in it.
We'll see what happens. I mean, I can tell you, the school year hasn't started yet.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes people are still in summer mode.
Sure.
So I think, once school year does hit, and people realize this is out there and we communicate again that this is an option, they might be more apt to.
Right.
And I think to Andy's point, folks might have looked and not processed or not seen a due date and been like, oh, this is available.
Well, and comparatively, how many people have signed up for parking passes?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't look at that data, but it'd be interesting to see how many students signed up for a parking pass and what percentage of those didn't waive their bus, right?
Correct.
And then
And that would give us enough time to target those, students.
I thought I saw Rich, but Rich, no.
Andy
Okay,
got
so
my-
Rich,
Andy asked
Andy,
my
then
question.
Nicole and Cynthia. Andy, no?
Oh, okay. Also, this is the first year we're doing this. So, not only are we kind of questionable on how well it's going to work and looking at how well it's going to work, I think students and parents are probably doing the same thing, gauging their involvement off of that. So I think while this year we're kind of trying to get a baseline, I think you probably won't gauge accurate participation until next year's pool that deals with it, because you're gonna see how students handle, or seniors handle parking, handle bus routes, handle transportation, and then the juniors that come into that will probably build off of that. So I don't know how accurate the representation we're gonna get from this year's pool is gonna, show how well the program is gonna work. I think you probably have to run this a couple of years.
Agreed, yeah. And you can see, part of the goal is, look at the data from 26-27 year to do an expansion plan for 27-28. And sometimes that's rethinking what we did, right? Best laid plans. Sometimes you have to go back and say, well, we thought this would work, but it didn't, but how would it? And
Or
rethink
maybe
things.
put the waivers out earlier,
Strategy.
how to handle
By
all
the time
of
we
that.
have policy in place, then we had to move quickly.
Right.
Cynthia.
Hi, so just for clarity, eligibility for the waiver would be students who will be driving to school, will have a ride to school, and not taking the bus to and from school?
Correct.
Correct. All right. Now, how about if a student who signed up for the waiver and they have to go to Polytech, are they allowed to drive their vehicle to Polytech? My understanding is they're not.
No.
So would they then would have to take a bus from the school to Polytech? Is that going to be?
Yeah, this
Or
waiver
do-
doesn't, that's actually been the biggest question we've had, is how will this affect athletic busing and Polytech busing? And it doesn't affect that, so
So
that's
it's
one of the
not.
things we probably do in our second communications, make it very clear that this is only for transportation to and from school.
Right.
This doesn't affect any other transportation during the school day, including Polytech, athletics, field trips, things like that.
Right.
So Cynthia, if I understand your question correctly, you're saying if a parent believed that the waiver excluded them from athletic and/or Polytech busing,
Polytech,
they might
maybe.
be hesitant
Correct.
to, got it,
Mhm,
okay.
yeah.
Clarification. Got it, yeah.
Well, a parent was concerned about their child who would have to take a bus to one of their classes off campus. And they have a vehicle, and she was wondering if she would then not be eligible for that waiver because her child will be taking a bus to.
And that's one of those things we learned,
Class.
and that's, again, in future communications, we'll make sure that's it's explained better. Because, it only affects transportation to and from. And to Nicole's point, this is, again, a pilot year where we're trying to figure some of this out, so.
And we have so many nuances. Also, it's only eligible for the 12 municipalities that send here. So if you have a student coming from a Del Val, Polytech, they're a full-time academy student, but they're not ours, right? They live in Kingwood, let's say. They're not eligible for the transportation waiver because their bus is provided by the Del Val district.
Yeah. So yes, there are
Some
some
of those
other
are just
caveats
clarifications that we're slowly making sure it's in all the documents underneath.
Are we sending out like a reminder email about, can we put in there, in that reminder email, something about the, the Polytech, clarity for the Polytech? Okay. Just to make sure that people know.
And when I say it's been our biggest question, it has been, a lot of questions.
Right,
That's really
right.
been the one thing that, we want to improve on when we send out the communication, is make sure we explain that it doesn't include Polytech transportation, athletic transportation, and just make sure they understand it doesn't include any transportation except for to bring you from your house to school, and then from your school back to your house at the end of the day.
I mean, you don't know it's missing until it's missing.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
It won't affect late buses, for instance, that's another thing too.
Right.
The 310 buses, we want to make sure they understand that, right? Because those buses are going to run, sometimes those buses run with 2 or 3 kids on it anyway. So we have plenty of room in those buses. We don't have to exclude anything.
Stephen?
One, I don't know how interested we are in doing this, but one way to help spread the word, potentially some guerrilla marketing for that would possibly be, the first week of school-ish, handing a little flyer to all the parents that are in the drop-off line, being like, hey, are you dropping off every day? Do you want to save $75 this year? Sign this waiver. And then just hand them a little flyer, like 5x7 cut, print it on a 8x12, cut 4 slices, like 4 of them, hand these little flyers to the parents in the drop-off line every day, and they might not have received those emails. Because
You probably walk down 31 with
wherever they're dropping off right in the front, there's whoever stands there and guides it, hand them a flyer, hand them a flyer, hand them a flyer. You know what I mean?
We could just put signage.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's a digital sign in front of the school, right, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, just scan it.
I mean, because I got 6 emails today, like correspondences today, which isn't, no problem with, I'm not saying it's too many, but there were 6 emails today. There was like 4 the other day, maybe 3.
Sometimes they
So
get
there's a
lost.
lot of emails. Sometimes you might miss that one about transportation. Maybe you're like, transportation, what is that? I need to Aspen and I need this. It's my priority and I'll read that in a month. It's like, oh crap, I could have saved, I'm going to drop my kid tomorrow and I've been doing this for a month and I could have. So, that's it seems.
Well, back to school night would be a great spot.
Yeah, we've talked about that too, right, sure. But having the sign, say it on the signs, say it, even just on a whiteboard, we could write it as people walk in the building, because they're just running around. It's not, there's no like, go to the auditorium and do this. You're running your kid's schedule on back to school day, and it's just like, what am I doing?
Yeah, that's what, back to school night does get a little frantic, but there's a lot
if
of
there was a
conversations
sign in
that
the front of the
happen in
school.
hallways and.
Hallways, billboard, right, plaster them up around the hall so parents see as they're walking around.
Yeah, QR code.
Yep,
QR code.
scan this to get there, right. Scan this to sign up, yeah. I don't know, just a little thought.
Absolutely.
No, that sounds crazy, but it's actually a really good idea.
You got, you know, it's, I mean, it's just boots on the ground.
No,
type of thing.
great
I
idea.
can't, not everyone's on the internet, everyone's reading an
It's a great
email.
idea.
Want $75? Scan here.
Yeah.
So, that might feel like a phishing attack.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure we're not marketing to the point where people are getting it, not realizing what they're getting.
Yes.
So it's like that balance, but.
Yeah.
Anything else? on
No,
your-
it was just my, just the district goals, which,
Okay.
great conversation.
Brian?
I don't know where else to bring this up, or to ask this question, but we got Rich Brown's presentation made me wonder whether so there's the VOTEC has a school that's the Academy School, or Academies Institute, or something like that, right? Is that part of the regionalization discussion?
No, because they are a county school system. So the vocational school district is Hunterdon County School District. So the regionalization study that we're doing is for the students that live in our footprint in each of our municipalities and are sent here based on that, based on being a Situate district. So it will include some of the students that are in those academies, because if there are kids, they would be part of that, right? Part of the demographics and enrollments, things like that. But it's not going to be, it's not going to change those academies and the structure of them and how they function in our districts, in our schools.
If I understand your question correctly, Brian, it wouldn't be exploring how to absorb the academies into a regional district, whereas the K-8s, it would be talking about if you were to merge, this is what it could mean or look like.
That's a pity.
I mean, there are potentials. The study will look at the financial impact, but it's also going to look at the educational impact. So I don't think they're going to come in and make recommendations that we start our own biomedical academy or something like that. But if we became a K-12 that had enough students,
No, I
the system,
I don't think we want to duplicate those efforts. It's just,
yeah.
we're always talking about this funny thing, a little bit funny,
Yeah.
in my perspective, that, oh, these students, they're really ours, but they're not ours.
Yeah.
They're really theirs, but they're not really theirs.
Yep.
It's like co-parenting. You get like a little bit of both.
These conversations happen around the county. My colleagues at the other high schools too, they have those conversations with me as well. Because sometimes they're losing some of their top students that are coming here, and that impacts them and their schools as well.
Okay, all right, just a question. Thanks for the clarification.
Okay. I just have a few updates. We have our regular board meeting next week, August 25th, 2026, 7 p.m. in this office. A reminder that the workshop 2026 is October 19th through 22nd. I believe myself, Tara, and Nicole had indicated interest to go and would be able to report back to you on presentations and ideas there. A reminder to the public that we have the Bloomsbury referendum question coming up. I know we've seen indicated approval from the county. I believe it's in the hands of the state for things to get finalized for that ballot question to appear in November. And then last, I had shared a couple, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, some draft board goals. I think I've heard back from 1 or 2 folks. I'll just ask that, I'll resend them, but do kind of take a look at those so that we can kind of bring them officially either to next week's meeting or ideally, I would like to maybe just bring them to next week's meeting to see if we're in a place that we're feeling good about them for the year ahead. Any questions or clarifications on that? All right, that brings us to our opportunity.
So, somebody's working on the what's called talking points for the referendum?
Yes. Yeah, well, I think what I'm talking about is the state level sort of approval for the ballot question. We had talked about having some talking points prepared, ideally by back to school night, to be able to communicate to municipalities, to parents, to publications.
Right, we said those should go forward, that effort should go forward.
Yes.
In parallel to waiting for the state to give their final blessing on the wording.
Yeah.
Because we don't think it's going to get changed much, if any.
Right.
And we do know that it's going to come quick.
Yeah.
We don't think it'll be changed. There is a deadline of August 21st to get language to the county clerk to get that language on a ballot. And we haven't received that final state approval, or at least I don't believe Bloomsbury has received that approval yet. They've been working, I've been copied on a lot of emails between lawyers, and I think they're hopeful they'll have it by this Friday, but it's coming down to the wire, so.
Because there needs to be space on the ballot, because that's why the county needs it. by
Sure.
the 21st.
Implication being, if it's on the 22nd, we don't have a referendum?
Well, the referendum it wouldn't be November, is what it comes down to. It would go to whatever the next deadline is. If they wanted to call a special election, that would be the only thing they
I think they can do them in January, right?
would do.
They have like certain times for referendum questions. I
They
believe
do. The problem is,
January.
for us, it costs money.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
costs money
Money.
if you don't do it during a
12
general election. So there's, a benefit to keeping in
And
mind.
12 municipalities. Very
Yeah.
Plus, if you do it in January, there'll be like 18 people who vote.
Not right.
12 of us plus.
I don't want to jinx anything tonight. Fingers go crossed, and we're hoping that, the wheels are turning, and the state will get us something by Friday.
And
Okay,
then
but-
on to
but-
communication.
But yes, in terms of, there's, some people are working on, or Bloomsbury's working on maybe the talking
The
points.
attorneys.
Yeah.
And they indicated they're coming soon?
I think they were handling the question deadline,
Probably.
and then we shift gears
Okay,
to
okay.
But they did say they were going to work on the talking points
Yes,
for us and give
yes.
us a lot of information for this board to evaluate and determine whether or not
Good.
we want to add to it, modify it,
Well, but we can ask too,
Yeah.
if there's something, if we have something I can share with Tara and Andrea for next week to get sort of our thoughts rolling on that as well. Okay. We're at our opportunity for public comment. During this portion of the meeting, the public is invited to address the Board of Education with comments. You are requested to sign the register provided and to state your name, municipality of residence, group affiliation if applicable, and direct your comments to the school board president. While all comments will be considered by the Board of Education and a response may be forthcoming in and when appropriate, individual school board members may not respond to the speakers at the time of their appearance. The public comment period will be a maximum of 30 minutes in length unless there are unusual circumstances. You'll be allocated 3 minutes to speak, and no one will be permitted to speak more than once on the same topic until all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. Please keep your comments respectful and non-defamatory, and maintain the level of decorum appropriate for a public meeting where students may be present and in the audience. Do we have any members from the public who would wish to speak at this time? Okay, seeing none, we will move to curriculum instruction and technology. We have a number of items here. I don't know if between Rich, if you want to brief us on any of those specifically.
So I'll touch on all of them, but Rich, feel free to jump in at any point. So the out-of-district placements we don't have on here yet, but you'll see that's similar to what we had. That'll be on the 25th for a meeting for action. We usually wait until then so we make sure we have everybody included. We do have our professional consultants for student services. I think these are just some additions to what we had already. Maybe for psychiatric evaluations, right, Jen?
Yes.
And then we also, we don't have the contract yet, or actually, I don't know if we have a contract.
We don't, but they.
So Mind of the Athlete is a program we've been running at each school for many, many years. We're just hiring them again. It's $7,500 per school. They do 3 presentations throughout the school each year, one for each season. And it's great topics that Jared Spencer, who's the owner and founder of this company, comes out and talks about things to help athletes perform, whether it's healthy sleep habits, nutrition, focus, the mental health part of it. So we've had great feedback from the students. We actually started asking the students and parents if they saw this had a positive impact, and all that. We do that at the end of survey, at the end of season surveys, and it's had some great feedback. So,
Questions or clarifications on any of those items? Stephen?
Just to clarify that professional consultant part, that's us acknowledging that that's the cost for that. Like, it's not a bill right now or anything. That's just, that's what the fee will be when we have to use that service.
If we need to use that service, that's what the fee will be.
Thank you.
Brian?
Can I ask where we stand now for the Mind of the Athlete presentation in terms of who can attend?
Yeah, so I don't think we would exclude anybody. It is based towards athletics, but I know marching band is something that I know we've had come in the fall. I think that's probably the only non-athletic activity that that doesn't fall under our traditional athletic program that gets invited.
When does it happen? During the school day, after the school day?
During the school day.
During the school day?
Yes, there's a schedule where everybody from, in the fall, everybody from the football team will come in a certain period and it's presented to them. But everybody on the, I don't know if they combine boys soccer and girls soccer, but it's, different programs go at different times, hear the message, and then that's.
Okay, so we're generally not open to any student?
I don't think it's marketed to any student, but again, I think if there were students that were interested in it and heard this was going on and wanted to hear the program, I don't think anybody would be denied. So.
Andrea, and then Steve.
Yeah, I think I wanted to follow up on what Brian is saying. It seems like this information would be good for a lot of different student populations, or I was wondering if we have something that's comparable that's just sort of the more general. I know there's a lot of help with general study skills and tutoring, but what about just a lot of the students come in and there are, I guess it's called executive functioning now, being able to handle, all the different deadlines and things like that. Is there more of a generalized mind of the student program that, we might want to look into?
If it was for a general ed student, I think for all of our students, I'm not sure if this would be the program for that.
Right, I'm not saying that this
Right.
would be, I'm saying, is there an opportunity to host something comparable for just more of the general student that I know, it seems like all those services are piecemeal. Go do this if you feel like you're falling behind. But I don't know if there is an overall, welcome to high school every year, here's a reminder of how to, keep track.
Yeah, let me see if I can collect some data on some things that we're already doing, maybe.
Right, because I'm
Sort of
sure there
satisfy
are
that.
many
And
things.
then, if we can look at expanding something.
And according to Aspen, marching band is a sport.
Yeah.
Stephen.
Just about what Brian was saying, I believe I received emails because my son was in sports and stuff. And either way, I think I received an email notifying me that course or program was happening, coming up, right before that winter sports season, spring sports season as such. I think there is a correspondence that's sent out. Because I remember seeing things about more than just before I was on the board when we talked about it previously, but in my kids' high school experience, I believe I recall seeing a lot of correspondence regarding it. I don't think my kid ever attended, but he's not, but anyways, yeah. I think that there was just information that I shared so that people could know, but I don't know how many people, fully.
Yeah, I think it depends. Some coaches, push it.
Some coaches do definitely,
They want their kids there. But again, I think it is an opportunity for other students that, let's say somebody was in motocross,
individual sports,
rider, and they, but that's not something you offer in school. But it's still, questioning. We have a lot of students that participate in equestrian sports and things like that. So maybe putting it out there that this is an option if you participate in sports or if you are just interested in sports. Maybe you just play basketball in your driveway. But some of these topics might be of interest to you and applicable to your academic status, because that's really what this comes down to is student athletes, right? So.
Is there a threshold of the number of students for this amount that we are paying for the school? Is there a
there isn't, but I think for
minimum
the
or
program,
maximum?
No, but for the program to be effective, I think that's why they try to break it up throughout the day so that it's not one big theater of students where you're going to lose some of the kids. It becomes a smaller group. So if we had another 20, 30 kids participate in some of our sessions, I don't think it would impact it at all. If we had 300 more kids come to one of the sessions, it probably would. But the cost is the same no matter what.
Because to your point, a student wouldn't be denied, but how would they know it's available to them? Right?
Yeah. So, but we can look at, again, communicating it out there to see if there are any other students that aren't in one of our traditional sporting programs that want to participate. And then we can actually track those numbers and see what kind of participation we get outside of our traditional sports programs.
Okay. Anything else on any of those items? All right, that brings us to policy and school security. The policy ad hoc group met last night for about an hour and a half, so I'm going to hand off to Brian to sort of walk us through some of that conversation, and there might be some additional explanation and comments from Dr. Burgess and Dr. Cottrell.
That's right. Yeah, so we met for an hour and a half so that you wouldn't have to. So we covered 5 things. A few of them are on the agenda specifically. And I'm not going to go in exactly the order we covered them, but the first thing to talk about is the item that's the second reading. So on agenda 10.3, this is the second reading of the Internet-enabled devices policy. We had a first meeting last month. No text has been changed because there was, the discussion didn't result in any change in the text. So it's a second reading with no change from the first reading. So it's about the simplest thing that we covered. Underneath that is or 10.2 on the agenda is the associated regulation. So the policy is the what and the regulation is the how. And the administration constructed a regulation that they presented to the group. It's not linked here.
It's not linked here. I did send it to everybody just so you have it in your inbox if you wanted to view it real quick.
Okay.
We won't take action on it tonight. We'll take action on it next week. But
right.
This is for discussion.
So it's listed here as a first reading, but it's because our own board policy is that the regulations they don't go through the first reading, second reading. The administration, we task the administration coming up with regulations. They come up with regulations and then implement them, and they're just sharing them with us as a board. So we're not going to do a second reading of the regulation. If we have any feedback for the administration, we could give it to them. But rather than me try to walk through the regulation, we thought the committee thought it would be a great idea to have Dr. Cottrell walk us through it, basically, because it's essentially a product of his efforts.
You're going to put this on me, Brian, huh? Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. So, as we know, the state requires that students' cell phones are off and away during the instructional day, which for us is from 7:45 to 2:25. So, beyond that, they allow us some flexibility in how we make that happen, and then some other rules that we can apply around that. So the regulation specifically that we have stated was that off and away cell phone policy, essentially meaning that we don't want to see cell phones during the day, but we're not going to require students to put them in like a bag, or we will allow them to bring them to campus, which is one of the things we could have adopted. But again, we don't want to see that, so we expect them to be off and in a backpack or off and in a locker. So that is number one. The second thing is we could have had a discussion about if we allow students to have cell phones on a school bus. And so the decision we made is we allow students to have cell phones on a school bus to and from school, again, before the instructional day, after the instructional day. So that was outlined in the regulation there. And then another decision that was made was about students using cell phones on school grounds before and after the school day begins. So again, a student is dropped off at 7:30, they can use their cell phone on school grounds until the instructional day starts at 7:45. One of the decisions that we talked about was the use of cell phones during things like field trips. So during the instructional day, but off school grounds, and we put that as with the approval of a principal or designee to do that. So again, if the student's going on a field trip to New York City, we wanted students to have access to their cell phones in case of emergency or in case of a lost student. So again, each of those would be on a case-by-case basis. But that was one of the options that we could choose from. And then school-sponsored events taking place outside of the school day, which again, that is your basketball game at 7 o'clock at night. Obviously, we're going to allow students to use cell phones during those types of activities as well. And then there was another option that we chose, which was allowing students to use cell phones during the instructional day at school property if no other option exists for that, for the use of that cell phone. So if there was some activity, maybe a career-focused activity, maybe something that was a unique experience that we wanted to have happen that required the use of a cell phone and we had no other way around it, we could allow students to do that, again, with the approval of the superintendent of principal. So that is essentially the rules that we have in place, and then the consequences associated with that. So for the first offense of a student who is in violation of that policy, we are confiscating the device from the student. We had some discussions about how to do that in the least disruptive way possible in the classroom. Essentially, we're just going to ask the teacher to have the student put the cell phone in front of the class. We're going to have envelopes, and then the security staff members will come around each period and collect any cell phones and bring them to the main office. And then the students will receive a detention as a result of that for that first consequence. The second, and I'm sorry, that cell phone is held for the end of that day. So at the end of that day, that student can go to the main office and pick up their cell phone. Second offense is, again, the student cell phone is confiscated. It's held until the end of the day. And in this situation, a student receives an extended detention. That is until 5 o'clock. So it's a longer detention. For the third offense, again, the cell phone is confiscated for the day. They receive another extended detention, but then the difference here is that that student will have to turn in the cell phone to the main office for 5 days. So every morning at the start of the day, there's going to be we have cell phone holders in the school. There'll be a little slot, with Johnny's name on it. Johnny needs to come in every morning with his cell phone in that slot. And that will happen for 5 days. And then for the fourth offense, we treat that as though at this point it's insubordination. The student's willfully choosing to not follow the school policies. And so we switch to insubordination, which allows us to have some other access to consequences, everything from an in-school detention, or in-school suspension to an out-of-school suspension, and then holding that cell phone for 30 days. Well, having the students submit the cell phone for 30 days. And at no point in any of our plans are we planning to hold the cell phone overnight. It's all during the instructional day of the student. So, yes.
And just to clarify, cell phone is an internet-connected cell phone. If someone has an old-fashioned flip phone that's just a cell phone, not internet-connected, just a cell phone, they're allowed to have those.
Well, it doesn't fall under this policy, but we would consider that a personal electronic device. And a cell phone like that, we already have a code in place that you can't be walking down the hall making a phone call.
Right.
But it would be a slightly different policy, but still not allowed.
Not allowed, yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions about the regulation? Chris?
Students, when they have to use a restroom, in the past, they would need their phone or a pass on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that being?
It's all through Smart Pass, which is can be run through a Chromebook, and so students.
So they carry their Chromebook to the bathroom?
No, they don't need to take the Chromebook with them. So they don't need to take the cell phone to the bathroom. They don't need to take the Chromebook to the bathroom. But how a Smart Pass works is if it can happen a couple ways. Either a student through their Chromebook sitting at their desk can request a pass from their teacher to go to the bathroom. The teacher just approves it on their device, or the teacher can, through their own teacher device, give a virtual pass there. And then we have hall monitors that have tablets that they carry. So when they're in the hall, they can see all the students that are out on pass and their pictures. So there's no need for a student to carry their cell phone or their Chromebook.
This is a very specific question you should probably have minutes for about me asking. My daughter mentioned, she's like, oh, I won't be able to use my Saturn app that they use to have their schedule and timers and stuff like that.
That's a problem. It's a problem we're trying to work around. So Saturn app was really a useful app for a lot of students. They had their schedule on it that they were accessing. Again, on the first day of school, it's not uncommon to see kids walking down the hallway looking at their cell phone because they're looking at their schedule, they're looking at the school map, all of these things which are on the Saturn app. So one of the
I was just wondering, is there some comparable thing that can be put on the Chromebook?
Oh, I don't know about on the Chromebook. Well, I mean, Aspen will be the comparable thing on the Chromebook. But what we're doing to allow for that is we worked with Mike Squarsha and G to run reports that allowed us to generate for every individual student on the first day. They're going to have a map. They're going to have on that map where their locker is. It's going to have their schedule on it. And so that's something we hadn't handed out in the past because students had access to their cell phone, which had all that. So we're kind of taking a step back and giving that student everything they need in paper form on that first day so that as they're walking through the hallways, they can know where they're going.
Okay. And then one other thing, which I should have picked up on the first reading, and it says in here that we're requiring the students to put a password on their phone? And I know that's good practice, and most kids probably have it, but can we require someone to do that?
Well, I think the idea is that we don't want the students to say that we accessed their cell phone while we had it. The only way to really prevent that is to have a password on there. I guess we can't require it, but that's what, it's the recommended language from Strauss Esme based on the law, and I think it's trying to protect us as a school.
Well, yeah, I think it's also, so Johnny doesn't pick up Susie's phone and say, that's in trouble, but just seems like a kind of a gray area.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think most students probably do have some kind of a lock on their phone. If a student did it, I don't think we would even know that, to be perfectly honest. We would have them shut the phone off, give it to the teacher. The teacher would put it in the envelope, and then the student would pick it up later. We're not going to check to see if they have a password on their phone, but we're recommending they should do that just from a security standpoint.
Can you, I mean, just out of curiosity, can you have a cell phone today without a password?
Sure.
I mean, I know it'll go like finger or
No, yeah,
face.
you can do it without.
Bypass all of it.
Yeah, I don't allow my rising ninth grader to have a password on their phone at this point. I mean, they're 14 years old, they don't need a password on their phone that I can't access.
I guess I'm of the mind that you have the password.
Oh, yeah,
The password is
because
yours.
I'll forget it, I forget my own.
Well, the workaround on that is I'm assuming the kids can get their district email on their phone, correct?
Yeah.
It's a Google Meet.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they get their district email on their Chromebooks typically. I'm sure some of them set it up on their phones as well.
Correct. So that's typically a way, like a security protocol, like I know for me, for work, for me to have my work email on my phone, it required a password. That was an interesting conversation I had with my wife. I went from no password to password. She said, what are you doing? And I'm like, my work, I have to read my what? So that was interesting. So that could just be hey, you're gonna use your school email. But I had two questions. So obviously this is coming from the state, right? So are they requiring any reporting or any data up to them to see if this is effective or?
Not that we've been made aware of, no.
So then how would they know? It sounds like the discretion on the district then is the enforcement, right? So then how would they know if a specific district is actually enforcing?
That's been a conversation we've had, and I don't think they would. They would not, but.
If there was an incident that something happened and somebody said, well, this school was willfully, allowing students to have their cell phones out, and this is why this happened, because there was no enforcement, obviously we didn't want that to be reported on in the school. So,
Right.
we try to be good citizens and follow the rules and regulations that, are set forth, and that's part of our job is to teach students to be good citizens as well. That's part of it.
And then the last question I had is that this came up, sorry.
I know, I was just saying Richmond and Andrea and Stephen.
I think Rich clarified, but I just want to make sure. So the Chromebooks that they have on their email, on their Chromebooks, that has access to email out of district and receive out of district emails.
Yes, so and that was in the letter that we sent out to parents. We encouraged them, if you just wanted to remind your student that, I'm keeping you up to date in school, you could email your student at any time during the day, and your student will get that, on their school issued email, which they can check on their phone.
Okay, because I don't know where the miscommunication was, or I had gotten feedback that in the past, external emails would not come to that account. I don't know if it's true.
There was a time, and you can correct me, it was several years ago, when we did not have external emails being able to get through. But that has changed, I think, within 5 years ago.
And that's send and receive, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a very common practice at the K-8.
Yeah, I was going to say K-8 don't allow external.
I can't remember that. I don't know if we ever did have it. If we did, it was a
It
little.
might have been just the sharing of the documents, I don't know. Gee, but
Yes, and we have always allowed external, but we have given, in the beginning, we gave the, we first launched the one-to-one program, we gave the option to the parents. If you want to opt out your kid from receiving emails from external email address, you can ask us and we'll configure your specific account, with your child's specific account for that. I never got one of those.
Yeah.
So, Rich, if I'm understanding that your point is there is the ability to communicate.
Right. There was a misconception that they could not. So maybe, I don't know if that's just more of a
Well,
communication
who
piece.
knows, maybe that'll get kids reading their emails.
Or it may have been somebody who had a student in the middle school.
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe they confused it, because that, I know sometimes they don't allow kids.
Andrea and Stephen?
I was just saying, it seems like phones should be labeled now. It's the most easiest way to identify a phone is to turn it on. You know, you just see what the screensaver picture is if you're collecting phones. I'm just thinking that it should, maybe kids should put their names on the outside of the phone.
So that was the idea of the envelope. It's going to have a space for the name
Okay.
and student ID, I think, whatever.
Teacher clerk.
That way it goes in an envelope, gets sealed, and then we know that that phone is in there.
Because I know also, I think common practice, in addition to looking at the phone for the schedule, a lot of kids will tuck their IDs right in there also.
Yes.
So there's sort of this decoupling of some of these things. Stephen?
Just one thought about getting phones back to students at the end of the day. Obviously, we were hoping that this isn't a big occurrence, but yeah, common occurrence where we're confiscating numerous devices, right? But when the bell, how much time when the last bell rings, how much time is there from when the last bell rings to when like your bus is leaving? And are we providing enough time for 20 students to get their phones back if there's one secretary giving everyone their phones maybe? I don't know, how
Yeah, that's something-
have we thought into that to
Sure.
make sure that we're not making kids miss their bus?
Under normal circumstances, again, if there's a couple of cell phones there, it should be
Quick,
easier.
totally.
I could foresee on if we have a big influx of cell phones on the first couple of days, we might, need some administrative support help handing out these phones, you know. And
Or
then
like holding buses
and we
from
can hold
leaving
buses
type
for a
of
couple
thing.
of days, which is
Yeah.
common.
Cool, just something to keep in
No,
mind.
I hope we don't have to do that.
Totally
but-
saying that.
Yeah. Or if the student forgets, I'm sure there's been somebody who's not going to remember to pick up their cell
Get on the
phone.
bus and go home.
Yeah, right.
And are you going to be available after hours if the parents have then just drive you back to get that phone? I'm just.
Yeah, the office is open till 4.
So as long as it's before.
And then I guess was the process to get the phone back, it was kind of just like student shows their student ID and like, because their name's on the envelope and okay, your name matches, we'll get your phone.
We're gonna have the phones organized alphabetically. The phones are actually on camera, so you can see them. So again, if we need to start tracking things down, that a phone went missing, we should hopefully be able to do that. We'll have someone that validates that this is Steve's phone, this is Steve's.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, and we'll pivot back to Brian.
Okay, item 1. Item 2 is the agenda item 10.1, the first reading next week of the Strauss SMA policy manual. Strauss is a little bit ahead of schedule, which is why we are going to be able to do a first reading next week. Ahead of schedule in reverting back, our policies back to where they were in June of 2025 when we left Strauss SMA, plus updating the things that have happened since June of 2025 that they would have implemented or given us guidance to implement over the last 14 months. So those have been resolved. The administration is still, as the note that Rich sent out last Friday, Vertex sent out, they're still fixing, finding those last things. For example, the policy we just talked about. Right now, in the Strauss SMA manual, it's the old June 2025 policy. It's going to maybe updated to where Strauss thought people would go with the internet-enabled devices, but now we'll have our version in that when we adopt it. The first reading of the policy manual will be next week. It takes a second reading before it's adopted, and that'll be in September. The plan is to follow basically the same playbook that we did when we left Strauss SMA and went with NJSBA. We're going to adopt the manual wholesale. We've made as many changes as we know that to make as we can so that we're up to date. But nothing, it's not in stone. We can, as a board, we will still look at policies and decide if we want to make changes and address gaps and introduce new ideas, whatever we need to do. And, you know, if the ad hoc committee on policy will continue at least through this year, the next board will decide how they want to approach it, starting in January 2026, but, you know, something like that could continue to happen. The ad hoc committee looks at policies and decides to recommend changes for the entire board to review and adopt or discuss and adopt.
Questions or clarifications on that item?
Okay. Then moving a little out of order from our meeting, but the facility naming policy, policy 7250 in the Strauss-Esme language. And you know, this is another one that we hope to have changed before we adopt, do the first reading and second reading. So this is obviously a topic that the community has been interested in recently regarding the rave recommendation for the gym. We received draft language that provided by Tara. I think everyone has seen that one way or another? Or
It's
had
in the
opportunity
same
to?
email from Rich. If you go into where he had the link for the regulations, there's a second link for the folder that has those items in it, including the draft policy language.
Right. And I'll speak for the committee to say we were really, that language was very well received. Strong endorsement of the approach that Tara took, but there were a few discussion items. And if it's up to date, you will, the link, the document, you'll see those highlighted in yellow on the document. The easy issue that we brought up was the committee recommended, or just basically asked to edit the document to say that only the board can appoint a committee to consider a nomination. So it had that either the superintendent or the board could create that committee, and we just said, no, the board should, this should be a board job. So let's just take, you know, that was one easy change, or a small change, but there wasn't a lot of discussion about that change. TAR's draft also removed the 10-year waiting period after the death of a person to be eligible. That's was in our Strauss-Esme policy in June of 2025. So that's been removed in this new draft language, but it does still retain the 6 months kind of contemplation or waiting period after a nomination has been brought to the board before the board will take action. So no sooner than 6 months later. A little bit of time to think about it, to gather input from the public, to hear different, opinions, and so there was discussion around. I think generally most people thought, everybody thought that 10 years was too long to have to wait. That in some cases that meant it would never happen. Basically, it was almost like a never going to happen thing. But that there should be some recognition that we don't want this to become reactionary or allowed to be reactionary. So we're setting aside, the day of the raid kind of is one model in our head right now. Is so we've got this kind of sitting out there nomination, but there could be a case in the future that is much more emotionally charged. Like, let's say there's a tragic death, and there's a community effort to recognize this tragic, this person who died tragically, and there's a lot of emotion, and would, so there's some discussion of would even 6 months be enough time to think about it, to make sure that that the board, whichever board is there, would make those decisions in the best interest of the district. In the end, I'll try to speak for the committee and say the way we thought this would be addressed really is to first emphasize that these kind of recognition should go towards long-term, well, contributions that occur over a long period of time.
Or have a lasting impact.
Well, yeah, they should, yeah, that was already there. That was already in your language, that the contributions have a lasting impact, but, we're thinking somebody who has been present and impacting the district for decades. That's when you should be thinking, maybe to name something major with them. So we'll add, we thought about it, there you'll see language here that we just added something like, over a long period of time. There's also, because of the Dave DeRay naming a gym, maybe some of us, I certainly was kind of stuck a little bit on that, but the policy allows for graduated levels of recognition. Everything's not naming a part of the building. You could, have a bench, or, it's listed some of the possible things that could be used as recognition. It doesn't have to elevate all the way to naming the school. Like, that could have been was in my mind anyways, it kind of clouding my judgment. So there are graduated options, and so, a committee that recommends to the board could, that thinks these things through would take those into consideration. This type of contribution was, enormous and lasting over 60 years. Naming a gym does seem reasonable. Other contributions, having a plaque would be, or something like that might be the right answer. And that's allowed or encouraged in the policy. And then the final thing is that Tara's other suggestion is this kind of like the notable alumni or Hall of Fame or something like that. So that could be another pathway to recognize someone. And that one's not supposed to be so much, about memorial recognition. It could be they're a movie star now, or they're a book author, or they're a business person that's done really well, or something like that. So I guess the consensus is that we would, if you look at that document, is that we would not highlight memorial scholarships and trees or gardens. Memorial scholarships, because we cannot commit taxpayer money to fund a memorial scholarship. So we could, as a board, if someone asked us to, the board could authorize that, yes, you could use that name or something like that, but we can't fund it. And the trees are a nice idea, and who's going to object to planting a tree until the next spring the tree dies, and then you got to replant it or whatever. So it's not out of the question. The memorial recognition could be anything the committee thinks is appropriate, but we just didn't want to highlight those two things as pointing out that they're great ideas to consider. So then the guiding principles has got this, contributions over a long period of time. And then the timing, we would keep this 6 months. I mean, this is for the board to discuss. We're suggesting until somebody else on the committee says, no, that's not what I thought. That the 6 month waiting period is sufficient, given these other considerations. And finally, there was some question about that the board appointed a committee is a little ambiguous. Maybe we want to say a board appointed committee consisting of members of the board, members of the community, members of the staff, or something like that. Be a little more specific about what we mean. Personally, I don't think we want to get down to 3 members of the board, 2 members, we don't want to get tie the future board's hands too tightly, but we may want to be less open-ended.
Okay. Questions or clarifications? Andrew?
What happens if it's a question of renaming something? Or is there anything in the policy that says how long a name, at least how long a name should stay on once you name it? You know what I'm saying? Now we're talking about a gym that's not named, so it's not, this situation, but there's lots of things already named, and someone proposes taking a name off. Do we have any guidelines around considerations for that?
there was something in that recommended policy at the very end of it that says how, where, you know, like not redoing it type of thing. Like if it's there unless something, like for some unknown circumstance, reason where it's like, oh, well, this came to light, or like there's language in there.
Under future changes. There's 4.
And again, I just shared that the more assessment. So
Sorry,
some time to digest that.
I didn't have enough time to
Yeah, don't
do that, so I apologize about that.
And then, I'm sorry, Rich, you pointed out under,
Future changes, there's 4. So the board may remove or modify a facility name only when substantial new information demonstrates that continued recognition will materially conflict with the district's mission or values. Facilities replaced or substantially reconstructed, contractual naming agreements expire or are otherwise terminated, or other extraordinary circumstances.
Other questions, clarifications? Rich?
So on the eligibility section, Brian, so the committee decided that you did not have to be an alumni to be considered eligible, correct?
No, we didn't discuss that, yeah. An example would pop in my head initially would be a beloved teacher who taught in the district for 45 years, might not have graduated from here, but was certainly associated with the district or the school.
Yeah. Or a coach or a community member that has had a big impact on the district would be somebody that, if someone came up and said, they've done this for our district or for this school, we'd like to do this, that would be somebody that you would consider, our community, greater community, but had an impact on either school would be somebody that, someone could propose, and then that board in the future could say, yeah, well, let's consider that. Like you, in 25 years, right? Could be a board member, could be a community member, yeah, could be
You
you.
want this campus named Lordy Land, I'm not going to say no.
But it would be open to, it's,
That's what you want, I'll
because,
give it to you.
yeah, no, but because we're a community, it would be, there are people that impact our district that aren't
Yeah, no,
alumni,
I get it. I
teachers,
just wanted to make sure
faculty,
that
yeah. So
you
it's open
consider-
to
Yeah, okay.
I'm
Makes sense to me.
my phone to Lordy Land now.
Lordy Land,
Nice way to it.
it does.
Andrew?
And I'm not sure if I'm reading into this correctly, but does it look like we left something in there in case someone makes this sizable financial?
Well, yeah, that would be the outside contribute, yeah, I mean, it's just like hospital, any kind of, because we're a public entity, that would be something that in the future someone would consider, yeah, I mean.
Philanthropic.
Under eligibility, the fifth thing is philanthropic contributions of
Yeah.
extraordinary significance.
Yeah,
So I
so,
think we're leaving it open to if someone says, I'm
Hey.
going to give $10 million.
Hey, if they only give us
they want to
a
fund our
new
budget
school
for the
program,
next 10 years.
We consider that.
It could be
Might be my in for Lordy Land.
I know, Lordy Land.
Other questions or clarifications? So this procedurally would put us in a place, if we are doing a first read of Strauss Esme inclusive of this policy next week, we still have a month to reflect, to think, to have further conversation on this policy or other policies. Our second read would be in September, at which point those policies become district policies, actionable as district policies. So just wanted to explain that as a procedural point, that there's a 2-month process that affords us more opportunity and time.
Good.
Okay. Brian, was there anything else from our meeting
Yeah.
that you wanted to
Couple of
relay
things.
report?
The Booster Club proposed a memorial bench for Dave the Rave. Would be go up, there's some benches like
Right up on the hill.
up on the hill of the football stadium, and would be, take one of those, make it a new bench that has Dave the Rave. They proposed the whole, what it would look like, where it would go, the pavers that would be used, no cost to us. And, basically what the committee said was, let's get through this, because it's relevant to this particular policy. Let's get through this policy, let's get consensus around it and pass it, and then we'll have a committee. The appropriate thing to do then, based on this policy, is we appoint a committee to consider, and I would argue we would consider both things at the same time.
But it sort of, in essence, opened up that question that you might have competing requests or multiple requests, and that's something that we will have to consider.
Along those lines, this was not discussed at the committee meeting, but perhaps we could even start to think about this committee, this ad hoc committee that the policy is saying we should develop whenever there's a recommendation, a nomination. We now have 2 nominations basically for recognizing Dave. There's no harm, I think, in starting to think about putting that committee together, because I think it'll get adopted eventually, and so that we can keep the ball rolling on.
Oh, in terms of the representation of that.
Yeah.
Got it.
Who do we gonna put on it? Who's interested? So maybe I think having people from the community would be a great idea.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a board-only committee, but we haven't, to Rich Morgan's point, that in the policy language right now, it's unspecified.
Right.
But if it's left unspecified, then it's up to the board.
Right.
I would say the president and the vice president and superintendent to decide, what that board, committee, ad hoc committee should look like, and maybe get it formed so that we're not doing everything sequentially.
So you're suggesting that maybe in the next ad hoc meeting, the one in September, that...
No, the policy ad hoc committee, I don't think is that committee.
No, I understand that. But I think what I thought I was hearing was when the ad hoc policy next meets in a few weeks, but before the second read, that committee should be thinking about who constitutes the committee for these considerations, whether it's board members, community, students, staff, or some combination of that, to bring an idea forward around that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So essentially, the reply to the Booster Club is we're working on it. Let us get through this. Make sure it's a policy first before we act on your recommendation. The last thing is just the Tara's alumni recognition concept. Basically, I think these other things are going to take precedence to that one. But Tara's going to, through one means or another, share some proposed language. It's already...
There's some resources in that same shared folder.
Okay.
The Hall of Fame alumni. Dr. Cottrell did actually some preliminary research on other districts and that do these types of things and how they function.
I think my own perspective is that a key decision point for this board is, do we want to own this thing, this new concept that there'll be some kind of alumni recognition? Well, first of all, there'll be a policy around it, and that we're gonna do it, and there'll be like a place on the website, and maybe something physical or something like that. Because there's 2 competing models. The other model that some schools have adopted is it's handled by a third party, basically an alumni association. It's more like the way, for example, the Booster Club is right now. So the board doesn't own the Booster Club or tell it what to do. We have to...
Athletic Hall of Fame, I think we're...
Yeah.
The Athletic Hall of Fame, we don't have. The Booster Club, we do endorse as a board.
We can endorse, but we don't run it, right?
We don't run it, no.
We don't run the Booster Club, we don't run the Athletic Hall of Fame, we don't run the North Hunterdon Education Foundation. So it could have been a model like that, where it's like some organization, some group of people who are alumni get together and say, we're going to do this. And then they might ask the board, hey, would you allow us to link our website on your website or something like that? We might get involved, but we're not going to own it.
Well, I think
Tara's proposing we own it.
There were the 2 models.
Right.
One was the school owns it. The other was an organization owns it.
Right.
And it stemmed from not everything gets named. There's, that's a whole different criteria of naming something, but we have so many alumni and faculty and contributors to our district over the years, and will in the future, that we had a landing place to acknowledge them, Hall of Fame, a legacy. I brought in, when you wrote my thing, I brought in an educational component on it. The students will be, it's good for them to see there's activities they can work on if we set it up that way. So I tried to bring it in to highlight the community, but also offer an avenue for people that, if we ever have one of those situations that might not meet the criteria of somebody to name a building or a hall after or a library after, we have this recognition place because we have outstanding alumni for both schools over the course of the last 70 years, 75 years. So, and we will in the future. So that was where it stemmed from. Instead of an all or none and say, no, we put our stamp on here and name this Lordy land, we have a place on the thing to have a picture of Lordy to say his contributions, or anybody else in the district. So that's what I was trying to kind of get a balance and grow the district that way.
I'm sorry, Lordy.
Lordy.
I think of when you say that.
But anyway, so, but if, I don't know which is the best model for us, so that's why the board, if we can talk about it in the future.
Take a look at what Tara has put together and the additional information like that Dr. Cottrell put together. But I think in your mind, you got to decide whether we want to own this or does the board want to own this?
Well, let me ask you a question. Under both models, wouldn't the board still ultimately have the final decision?
No, I mean, if there was a North Hunterdon Alumni Association,
right,
they would decide who qualifies to be honored, not us.
But we wouldn't link to them if we didn't agree with them.
Perhaps not.
Yeah.
Perhaps we
The
wouldn't.
North Hunterdon Athletic Hall of Fame right now, the board doesn't have authority over who gets named to the Hall of Fame.
Right.
No, I'm talking about like naming something on the campus.
Oh,
Right. That's us.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. There's two different policies. Two different
Two
things.
different
We're talking
policies.
about
It's just
Maybe I totally misunderstood.
There's two things going on, so they kind of seem like they intertwine, but
Correct.
the facility naming is a policy we're proposing, and then the,
well, it's a policy we have.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
we're
we're
updating the
new
policy, and
language
we're
for it.
reworking the language, apologize. And then the other thing is a recommendation for a Hall of Fame, separate from the policy. The Hall of Fame thing is separate from the policy and the facility naming. Even though they kind of seem intertwined, they're separate because one's specifically about facilities and buildings and things like that. But I see how it gets confusing because it's not just buildings, but they're two different things that we're talking about here right now.
And also, I think the Hall of Fame, part of the intention, as I understood it with the Hall of Fame idea, was an opportunity to potentially showcase alumni who are, thriving in the world of work. Kids could see former graduates who are in business, in sports, in science, accomplishing things. As a way of sort of celebrating accomplishments beyond their time here. It could be networking, it could be inspirational to students to see who some noteworthy scientists who have gone to school here and where they are and what they're doing. But all of that would ultimately get determined. I think Tara was just making the distinction that a Hall of Fame could also do a recognition of someone who had passed or something like that, where something might be significant there too, but different from a naming policy or anything like that. But again, a digital space.
Oh, I'm sorry, that is the Hall of Fame only recommending to be a digital Hall of Fame right now? Or at all in general? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't clear on that.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be physical.
Yeah, it could be
And it could
physical.
be physical.
Yeah.
Or, got us thinking about it, but it's up to the board.
Yeah,
That's
that's
it,
true.
yeah,
It could be anything.
Planted the seed, that's all I did. I want to see it grow.
Way to go, Tara.
Thank you.
So Tara, just so I understand, so there is no current North Hunterdon-Voorhees Hall of Fame currently?
There's none.
Recognized by the district?
There's nothing at all in general.
Nothing?
Nothing. No, it's the Sports Hall of Fame.
There's Sports Hall of Fame.
But generally speaking, there's no, for any of...
Right.
Okay.
Just, yeah, there's only...
And one of the things I put in my example would be Olympic athletes. So Voorhees, same year, Voorhees had a two-time gold medalist, and North had competed 2 times. Alumni from North and one from Voorhees, but they both graduated in '97. But that, I mean, it might be in the Hall of Fame, but that's something notable of our alumni that did softball at one school, track at the other, and they went on and competed, you know, in Olympics. So those would be somebody that would be kind of something neat to have a place for our students to say, hey, you know, after high school, these went on and, you know, continued with their sports, or, you know, if they become a professional baseball player. I don't know what we have out there. We have poets, we have writers, we have scientists, we have, you know, just a plethora of alumni, and it'd be great to showcase them and highlight that, you know, to honor them, but also to give our current students a look forward to say, like a career path. Like they might not even think about it, but if we have alumni that gets nominated that, you know, worked in some kind of robotics or something, it might get our students to say, hey, after here, this is what I could do, you know, because here's an alumni that did that. So I'm just, you know, thinking about, you know, how to motivate and create and then send them off into the world to do great things, because there's a lot of them have already done great things from here. And a lot of them have gone on and come back to be educators here, which is phenomenal too. So that's a great thing to highlight as well. Faculty.
But I think also going back to something Dr. Burgess has said, we don't have the ability to tell the story of our students beyond their time here in the reports that we hear or the student presentations that we do here. And I think, you know, it's not actually that common for districts to have those places to celebrate where students go from here. So yeah, I would say it's a starting idea that can really develop. But again, separate from the policy, separate intent, broader scope as well. Stephen?
Does Voorhees have a athletic hall of fame too? Right
They do, but they are not very active. My sister-in-law is actually on it, but we're younger too, school, so I think they waited at, what, after 25 years the Hall of Fame starts going, so.
We're 50 at this point, we're not that young.
I know, well, we're still young, but they do, but it's not, it's just not active, but they have one.
And it's in the physical, it's a physical one there?
No, so the Athletic Hall of Fame is typically set up as a 503C or some kind of outside entity to recognize athletes, you know, that went to high school.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not affiliated officially with the Board of Education or the district. Their sole purpose is to recognize students from that school. So
Yeah.
obviously, there is a connection there, right?
Yeah.
You know, and again, I think North Hunterdon's Hall of Fame, again, it doesn't sound, it sounds forever ago, but I think it was the
2001,
inaugural class
I
was
think.
2001.
I think, yeah, my
You know,
brother-in-law
so
was on
it,
it.
even that is not, you know, since the school's been around since 1955.
Right.
You know, that's still not, you know, that's fairly new.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Any other questions or clarifications on that item? All right. We have some job descriptions. So.
Yeah, so the job descriptions, these were just next on the list of what we went to school boards and looked at their recommended language. They're also, you know, next on the list as far as seniority and job descriptions if we went down from our chain of command. But then we also added a registered nurse and school nurse because we wanted to make sure those were updated. There's a distinction between a school nurse and a registered nurse. A school nurse needs a school nursing endorsement through the Department of Education. A registered nurse needs a nursing license through the Department of Health or Consumer Services, I forget which one. But their license isn't an education license, and so there's some differences on what their responsibilities are. And so we want to make sure we have both these updated so that we can use both.
Questions or clarifications on those items? Okay, that brings us to finance, facilities, and transportation. Katie, once again, if you could just sort of, at a high level, walk us through what these items are. I realize some of the information will be forthcoming between now and next week.
Absolutely. So the first one is for last year's extraordinary aid application. We apply for these funds for students that are either out-of-district placements or in-district special education students that rise above a certain threshold of cost. We apply for a certain amount, and they tell us what we have been approved for. So, again, a little background. I know in the past year we've talked about how much are we really getting for our application. We applied for about $2.5 million of of that number. And that's been on a decline the past 5 years. It's gone down from 90% funding to about 45% funding. So again, in our budgeting timeframe, we talked about extraordinary aid. We're lessening our reliance on that budget item every year. So every year we budget for less, knowing that the state is supplying less every year.
And that's a global phenomenon or
Correct.
happening to
That's
districts
across
across the
board.
state?
So
Okay.
they look at all of the applications, they decide what their pool of money is, and then they allocate a certain percentage out to every district.
Will that be something that's discussed in like the school funding formula type of thing in a sense? Is that related at all, or separate?
That is woven into that conversation
cool.
because it is an element of school funding.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So that is a good talking point. So again, we're just accepting last year's application because we apply in May after we've seen the full year of cost for those students. And we typically get that amount in July, so we're asking the board to accept that in August. 11.2 is our annual wellness grant. We applied to the school's health insurance fund, which is that jointure that we are in for health insurance. They approved us for $15,000 again this year. That's the same amount that we had last year, so we'll deploy the same type of items based on the strategic plan and the advisory committee's kind of direction, what was working last year and what was well received as far as wellness fund opportunities for staff. 11.3, I know Rich has kind of touched on this in his updates, but we've been working the past several months with the wrestling club and what space would work best for a practice area for the girls program at North Hunterdon. It's an expanding program and it's rapidly expanding. They need practice area. We've explored a few different options with them and strategically working with our architects to determine what's the most cost effective and what provides the best use of space. And we've had that green locker room as kind of one of our next items at North Hunterdon to target anyway, because it's kind of not utilized in the capacity that is maybe it had been in the past. So if you want to jump in on that.
Yeah, it looks like a 1955 locker. Yeah. And, but there are some things that are great with the space. And again, when Katie did some of the HVAC grants, she included that space with it because it's on our long-range facility plan to be renovated at some point. So since we were doing HVAC near there, that's already included there. So this is a space that it's a little easier to renovate because of the size of it to meet the needs of the girls program. And then it can also be used by wrestling clubs and things like that. So it's basically an expansion of the wrestling facilities at the school.
Without expanding the building, kind of just reutilizing the space.
Yeah. And we looked at a few different options. There was a storage area that we talked about, which is near to current wrestling room. But that, because of, again, the HVAC is usually sometimes some of the most expensive parts of this, that was cost prohibitive. We talked about doing an outside building. The store capacity became an issue, and lots of other factors. So this was a space that we thought about. We met with some of the representatives from the club, and they think it'll work great. We met with the architects. They're going to give us a proposal on what it would cost to come up with the plans to renovate this space. And again, it's already on our long-range facility plan, so we're going to do something with it at some point. This seems like the best time to take advantage of it.
So what I'll be attaching in the next few days will be the resolution to approve Fred Somgen. That will give them the authorization from the board to start developing those plans. So they can develop the plan designs, bid specs, so that we can go out to bid, hopefully over the winter time, so that we can get bidders by spring and then do it as a summer project next year.
And also part of that would be the locker room space that it's currently utilized by the fencing programs. And so part of this would be modernizing that area too, so that we still have the locker rooms for the fencing programs, and then also the, I believe it's field hockey and girls lacrosse also use those in fall and spring.
So like some custodial areas, but everything will be repurposed, kind of in that new layout design.
And when you say repurposing that space, still in support of those diverse programs?
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
11.4 is Hunterdon County Educational School District's agreement. You're going to see this a few times this year. We need to make payment to them per our contract, and typically we have this approved in August based on their preliminary enrollment numbers. It'll get approved again once they have their final enrollment numbers after their ASSA. But in order for us to make payment, we ask the board to approve this preliminary number that they have for enrollment. 11.5, last month we saw North. This month we're going to see Voorhees, Booster Clubs, corporate sponsorship banners. So that'll be attached in the next few days. You may actually see another one for North as well. So just heads up that you may see one more line item for another North banner. Training and travel will be attached, and the bills list, all the monthly financials are already on there. So if you have any questions, let me know.
I do have a question.
Sure.
So I noticed there are two things in there that have Everway, Holdco, and Score both had 2 annual subscriptions. I assume that's one for each school?
Sometimes we separate the purchase orders per school. Sometimes the purchase orders are combined. It's all just how it's entered into the system.
Rich?
Just curious, the Brown and Brown, there was an 812 for 16,000 and then an 825 for 8,000. Is that, we're usually 8,000 a month?
8,000 a month, so it's going to be for 2 months.
Oh, so those are all, that's just 3 months off.
Sometimes the bills come in a little later.
Okay.
I have a question on the bills. The NJSBA membership, what is that?
New Jersey School Boards Association.
I know that, but is that affiliated with the set of policy that we're moving away from, or is that a separate membership that we participate in that doesn't include the policies?
That's correct. Well, it depends on what you consider including the policies. They give they give a free version of their manual, but when we converted over their policies, it was not free and it was not part of this fee. This is a mandatory fee. We didn't have a choice, I believe, except to belong to school boards, and they tell us how much it is per year.
So what do we get for it?
It would be probably all our services,
Yeah,
our
all the services we
training,
get.
our field representation, the county network, the legal lawyer for the day phone calls, and all of the mail we get, all the emails and updates and programs and
So
subscriptions.
if we were using their manual, that would be above and beyond this?
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then one other thing I pointed out, this was on the top of my mind when we switched attorneys, and I kind of like how they do it here, but I noticed that because Schenck is general and special ed, they're kind of itemizing it on here. So they break it out by special ed and general. Well, the one on the top line says BOE attorney level or legal fiscal year 2026. I don't know what that is. Obviously, I know what general and special ed is. I just didn't know what the third one
This is a product of not necessarily them, this isn't us. We create purchase orders in our office to differentiate the buckets of services that they're providing. So FY26 would be last year's purchase order. You see it starts with a 602163. That's services that they rendered last year. Anything that's current July, August billing would be on the 7.0 purchase order.
Okay, and going forward, they're going to
As
differentiate?
they give us invoices, we kind of differentiate it into different buckets, and that you would see that on those purchase orders.
All right.
But then if I'm understanding Rich's question and your answer, that first item is really just the conclusion of the prior year
Correct.
standard service.
Yes.
Got it.
Or standard or special ed?
Well, last
Special
year
ed.
it would have been only
Oh, it would have only
special
been
ed.
special ed, that's right.
Because they
Now
were
that they're
only,
providing
correct.
one, that's why we're doing
so that would have
Good
been,
point.
that's also a special ed.
Special ed from last year.
Special ed retro, and then going forward, special ed in general are going to
Correct.
itemize.
So we'll put people see it.
anything Oprah related or any ancillary would probably just be under the normal board attorney general purchase order.
Other questions and clarifications at this time? Obviously, we'll see these items again next week for official approval.
If
Okay.
you have questions on specific POs or checks, I'd just request if you could email me, let me know, or Rich.
Or, yeah.
Because it would be easier for me to answer those.
To
when I
put
have things
in
open.
the,
Yeah.
Sometimes just
Kind of in
scrolling
a
through
public
this list of
meeting,
bills
kind of-
From your
desk.
in a meeting is,
Yeah.
But would it be okay to enter that on our document, our form?
Absolutely.
A question,
Yeah.
all right, and then Rich can get the answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
that's actually the best way.
Yep. Community relations and student affairs. I'm not sure if this is Rich or Tara at this
Oh,
point.
because we're committee of the whole, so I'm
Yeah.
not the chair of that anymore. But I wouldn't mind. No.
No, but so, I mean, both of these are the first is NJSIAA, which is the State Athletic Association. If we want to compete interscholastically with other schools, we need to become a member of NJSIAA. I don't know if there will be a specific contract with it, but it's an annual cost, just like school boards, that we have to pay.
And typically, do you know what that cost is, the membership?
I think it's in the bills.
I thought I
Yes,
saw
I saw it,
something
yeah.
on the bill, but I didn't know if it was
Well, there's one here for 2,725. I don't know if that's.
That may be a partial.
I do see an annual dues for 2,700. Yeah. Is that partial or whole? I don't know.
It's 27.25 per student.
Per school? Okay. Annually? Okay.
Okay. And then the second one is, we actually just spoke about this earlier, this is authorizing the booster clubs and parent organizations, PTSA, the North Hunterdon Music Association, and I believe the North Hunterdon Cheer Association. They are not, they are their own entities and they have their own folks, but the board authorizes them to operate as part of our district as a parent organization. And then every year they turn in the financials at the end of the year to make sure that, somebody at the board level is looking at them and say, they brought in this much money, they spent this much money these years, and they're tracking it properly.
So oversight is mostly financial?
Mostly financial, yeah. I mean, obviously we work with them very closely with a lot of other things throughout the course of the year as well, but from a board level, it's really financial. From an administrative level, it's working with them on everything else. By the board authorizing them, it gives us a chance to work with them administratively.
Any questions or clarifications there? That brings us to delegates' reports. I know we may not have something specific. I know, Tara, you've been updating on the county meetings. I do think it's worth noting that we were recently, I received a communication from our state legislator to invite us to a roundtable regarding financing, the transparency in the financing formula. They are going to be having a roundtable discussion. Tara and Stephen have RSVP'd to attend that. I'm imagining this is a byproduct of the resolution that we passed and sent to those administrative offices. So it is an opportunity. Tara and Stephen will represent us there. Certainly be hearing what legislatively might be happening, but it's another opportunity for us to amplify our message from our resolution. And you reminded me of it, Stephen, when you were asking about the extraordinary aid as part of the funding. So if there are questions, if you have thoughts and ideas, and if you want to filter them to Tara and Stephen, they can see that those questions are, again, sort of the spirit and sentiment of us passing that resolution, of wanting our legislators to take seriously the things that we are calling out or pointing to. This is really a unique opportunity to do that. And it was interesting to get that communication and know that at least our voice is being heard.
And Katie's coming too, so.
Oh, okay.
Katie's going to be attending, which will be great because it impacts our budget.
For sure. And she actually shared a great article, I think, with just the group here, the small group, that I'll try to put in my update as well. But it was all about the funding formula, and I think that's where we got some of the language for the extraordinary.
And our professional organization for school business administrators has a long document that was used, for advocacy at the state level. And I'm going to put that in AI, see what kind of tools that we can have for talking points, because it has a lot of individual bulleted items that will help us navigate.
I think the board should buy them some pitchforks.
Katie and Stephen?
Yeah,
Stephen is an armor and Rich is a welder, so they could probably make a few. But I do think the meeting is at the end of this week, or is it next week?
The 26th, I think, right? The 26th?
Yeah, it's a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Or, it's the day before school starts.
Yeah.
Do they live stream that?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I mean, Rich or Katie, have they done this before?
I've never been invited.
Okay, so this is...
And I think they invited a specific...
to our resolution.
So,
Yeah.
And they did say this is going to be a working meeting, it's not going to be...
Interactive.
No.
Yeah, it's not just for a legislator to come out and say, here's what we're doing, It's going to be, what do you need us to do?
Right.
So I think we'll prepare for it, and we'll get out.
Copious notes, Mr. Lordy? Suggestions?
No.
No. Filter them to Steve and Tara. Anything else on, Stephen?
Other than just with that
Delegate.
too, if we still want to proceed with presenting our resolutions to the NJSBA delegates committee in November, that due date is September 11th for us to submit the 2 resolutions that we did for the transparency and the healthcare. If we want to submit those to that, which is kind of the next, in line with, that's the NGSBA side pushing towards the legislature, and then we've got our meeting then that our assemblyman offered us to come and be a part of too. So 2 different rows to hit the same, problem with.
Okay.
Do you need a decision on that?
No,
No,
it's just,
you can- yeah,
it's
I
a
mean-
round table, it's happening.
No,
for
about
to
submitting
submit
our
I'm
our
sorry.
resolutions.
Gotcha.
I mean, we would need the board to say yes, and then we could, make.
I don't know if we have to put that on on our agenda to vote, say yes, we want to do that, and then we do it. I don't know how to do it,
Yeah.
but it'd probably have to be
We've never
done
done
by
it before, yeah.
next week's meeting, I'd suppose.
So you're talking about getting it onto the docket, so to speak, for the
There's a due
delegate
date to
assembly.
submit
Okay.
your resolutions to the
Yeah.
NGSBA Delegates Committee to be considered for further push, I
For the
guess.
school board.
So why don't,
Kathy might be a great resource to reach out to for that.
Or, yeah.
To see if we need to get it reapproved
Okay.
for the delegates.
Well, that's.
Because
You
would
have
it in
Kathy's
essence be the
I'll
same,
send it to you so you can reach out.
Okay.
is it in essence the same resolution?
I
but
think it would
then
just be the same exact resolution that we
Different
did, and
audience.
then we just then give our resolution, submit it to SBA.
Gotcha.
To say, hey, here's what we think needs attention.
Okay.
And then if, other than that, I haven't been there before, just from what I was reading of it, what I interpret from it, I believe that, school districts can submit the resolutions to then, at that committee, those resolutions will be discussed, and then the top resolutions will then be carried into what the NGSBA presents to legislation as well. So,
I think maybe at the next meeting, the action meeting,
there might be an
Stephen
opportunity.
could move,
Make a
make
motion.
a
do that,
motion
yeah.
that we adopt, that we speak as a board through these resolutions.
Okay.
Because we need to, as a board, decide that we're going to.
Yes. So maybe even before we leave tonight, either I can send something to Kathy, CCing both of you, to just sort of say, hey, procedurally, what would we need to do to have this on our action meeting for next week? And
Okay.
is it as simple as, just guide us in that?
yeah,
And
do I
so-
bring it up in all new business to say,
Yeah.
I want to do this, and then we
Okay.
vote on it type of thing, or is it on the agenda?
Yep.
Okay.
And then Tara, any additional updates regarding county level meetings? I know you've
No,
been
just the
briefing us.
September 28th is the roundtable, and it's going to be at Polytech, which will be
Right.
great. So it'll be their dinner, and then Dr. Burgess is one of our panelists, and it's Advancing Student Achievement and Curriculum Alignment. So it should be a great discussion for the county. And then October 8th, if you want to come to Somerset Tech in Bridgewater or come online, that'll be a 6 o'clock start there. And Brendan and I are going to be part of the panelists on there, and that's strengthening board governance and civility. So no pitchforks.
Questions, clarifications? All right. Brings us to a call for a motion and second to adopt Resolution 1826-1 for an executive session to discuss matters as reflected in the attached resolution. The board expects to be in executive session for approximately 45 minutes, and upon return to public session, action may be taken. But okay, safest way to go. Can I get a motion? I saw Andrew and Rich Morgan. First, motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? None? All right, we'll be back in a little bit. Can I get a call for a motion and second to reconvene public session? Motion, Andy was on it. Andrea, second. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions? None? Okay. Obviously, we have personnel and executive session minutes and items that we will be acting on next week. Any clarifying questions on anything at this point? Opportunity for old and new business. Any items to address there?
I'm sorry, I just have a little question. It doesn't have to be totally addressed, but it's more for Katie. Just because I wasn't here for any of it before, with the, I'm just trying, the solar panels that we installed here, right, are they supposed to decrease our electric bill theoretically, or they do?
They do. So there's solar panels on the roofs of both buildings, and they essentially decrease our electric bill because they locked in a certain price. We pay 1 cent per kilowatt hour for any generation on those two buildings instead of the fluctuating market rate, which is now, I would assume, at least 20 cents per kilowatt hour. So those bills are locked in at that rate for the term of the PPA, which is 15 years.
And when did it start?
We installed those post-COVID 2021, 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was all part of an ESEP, right?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did LED lighting install for the first phase, and then the second phase was a solar PPA.
So an
Which
ESEP
means
does
we
like-
didn't put any money out for it.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
just did all the construction, and then we locked in the rate.
Okay, all right, cool. That was kind of, I just was, just because one of the, well, a large bill, right, is the electric bill every month. It's like 30, 20, 30, 40
It's about
grand.
half of our electricity generation.
Okay, okay, cool.
The other half is still fluctuating.
Okay. I was, yeah, just like because to see if it was decreasing our bill like efficiently or whatever.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool, cool.
So then if I understand that correctly, our monthly bill, some significant portion of it is perhaps a byproduct of what's not solar, and then
Correct.
a smaller portion of it is the solar generation.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know, it was just a random question, that was it.
Yeah.
No, that's
And then did we ever rediscuss or touch back about that second time for public comment at all to add to our
No,
agenda?
I do, it's not gone, but it is something that we wanted to address through the policy committee, but the
okay.
policy committee has kind of had a full plate
Yes,
of
yes,
late.
yes. I just forgot how
Yeah.
that was going to be done.
Hasn't been lost, I think we're just looking for the breathing space to
Okay, cool.
get to it.
Yeah, that's all. Sorry for
Yep. No.
elongating our meeting.
No, not at all.
And I've been new business, simply because depending on what you read, it can read as though it's an opportunity to move a new idea. We have tended to use it more as almost an open forum, and it's something I just want to look into a little bit more, just to understand how to best guide that, particularly if folks are having things that they want to move or bring for the board's consideration. There's probably a process by which that comes to me, and I list it on there. Like, hey, here's an item that somebody wants us to move that we discuss or address in some way. But that's something, that's independently that I just want to get some clarification for myself on that as well.
Yeah, historically, before we went to Board of the Whole, it was an opportunity to ask a committee to look into something.
Right.
And then something usually would come out of that, you know, a work
report
product
or
that would then be voted on by the
response.
board.
Yeah.
But we kind of lost that because we were asking ourselves, hey, should we talk about this?
Right.
Right.
Next time.
And I guess and I'm just trying to get a little clarity myself, just so that I certainly welcome the opportunity for the ability to ask questions as they occur. But I just want to make sure that I'm managing it as appropriately as I should.
And I apologize if I've misinterpreted what that time was for, but.
No, that's not it at all. Okay. All right. Any other questions or I hope I didn't silence old and new business with that. So then, can I get a call and a motion and second to adjourn? Andrew with the motion, Nicole with the second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, none. Okay. Have a good night, folks.